across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very, very good morning to you. Well, is it going to be a great day, though? That's the big question. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, because let's face it, most of us went to bed last night thinking, yeah, he's definitely toast. He's definitely going to go. Now, I have not changed my view this morning. We're now more than 80 MPs in, including a minister. 3 cabinet ministers, by all accounts, have told the Prime Minister, yeah, you are going to have to go. The minister put up on the media morning round on most channels, not ours, Darren Jones, who's normally the biggest cheerleader. I mean, he virtually brings pom-poms out when he's talking about the Prime Minister and his great and wonderful achievements, of which there are, of course, very, very many. He looked pretty downcast, didn't look like he'd slept a wink. I think someone thinks he's out of a job, saying that the Prime Minister was making decisions today. Well, what's he making decisions about? Because he's going to stay, isn't he? Well, in the last hour, he has been hosting a Cabinet, regular, of course, Tuesday morning meeting. And the messages have come out of Cabinet that he has said he will not stand down. I know. He's told Cabinet that the process for challenging a leader has not been triggered because, of course, that 81 people standing up for one candidate. We've got more than 81 MPs, as I say, including a minister who and various aides to PPS, the lowest rank of ministerial aides, to some Cabinet ministers, well, the prominent ones like Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who have actually said he has to go. But we haven't got 81 signed up to say this is the one candidate we want. The message was clearly, I am going to fight this. He said to the Cabinet, as I said yesterday, I take responsibility for these election results and I take responsibility for delivering the change we promised. The past 48 hours have been destabilising for government, and that has a real economic cost for our country and for families. The Labour Party has a process for challenging a leader and that has not been triggered. The country expects us to get on with governing. This is what I'm doing and what we must do as a Cabinet. Well, my question to you today is, should Keir Starmer resign? Do you think he will resign? And who do you think will replace him? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222, and you can get in touch with us on X at talkTV as well. Calls are charged the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. And don't forget, whether you are listening on DB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connection device, if you miss anything from the show, and frankly, people, today, why would you want to risk doing that? You can always go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Well, there's no doubt at all. I don't have to tell you what's coming up in this hour. Or you know damn well what's coming up in this hour. Will he, won't he? We're going to be going to my guest, Jake Wallace-Simons, who's a journalist and author who you know well on the show. He's joining me in the studio. I'm delighted to say all day today. Yeah. Plenty to talk about, Jake. First up, though, commentator at the Mail on Sunday, and someone who, frankly, I don't think has left his phone or a TV in the last 2 weeks. He's been so frantically keeping us up to date on these issues, is Dan Hodges. A very good morning to you, Dan.
Morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, look, I mean, we knew this Cabinet meeting was going to be, you know, a tough one for the Prime Minister. The question was whether or not any of his Cabinet ministers would say publicly to him, within Cabinet meeting in front of others, you have to go. We're told that the likes of Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, have said you're going to have to put out some sort of timetable to leave. We think a third may have been John Healey, the Defence Secretary. This statement that has come out from the Cabinet meeting, oh, by the way, of course, completely private. We're never supposed to know what happened in a Cabinet meeting, are we? That the Prime Minister, he ain't going. He's sticking fast. How long do you think that lasts?
Well, how long we got? I mean, what time to get out of the Cabinet? Look, do you know what? I'm going to be completely honest with you. There is just a small part of me that actually admires Keir Starmer for, you know, just refusing to bow to the inevitable. I mean, you know, you have to give him a little bit of credit that even after everything, he believes he can survive. And actually, in fairness to him, again, it's quite, on one level, it's quite a clever political move, because what he's done, he's basically said to the party, look, you want to get me you've got to literally trigger a leadership election now. And what he knows is, in doing that, he is kind of dividing his enemies, because obviously there are a large number of people in the Parliamentary Labour Party who want him gone, but don't want him gone now, because they want to give Andy Burnham time to get back into the House of Commons, right? So what he's basically doing is splitting them off, saying, look, you can move against me now, but you can't get the guy you want. You're going to have to decide on someone else. And at the same time, he's also throwing down the gauntlet to Wes Streeting and saying, right, come on, mate.
Off you
come
go.
And have a go if you, Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. And, challenging Wes to put up or shut up, and also the other members of the cabinet.
Yeah, and that's a completely different matter. Now, yesterday, bearing in mind, this time yesterday, we were taking the Prime Minister's speech like this big reset speech was going to completely shore up his leadership. Now, I follow you on social media, you follow me. I think we were both very clear. This is not a Prime Minister who is capable of delivering a speech, either with content or the passion or any ability whatsoever that would be enough to shore up his leadership. Do you think that this challenge back to the cabinet, come on then, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough? Do you think that the likes of Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who by all accounts says he's ready to go, told the Prime Minister 6 months ago privately that he was ready to take over if and when, that he will have the gumption to go for it?
Well, we'll have to say, from Wes Streeting's perspective, he has to go for it. Otherwise, he becomes David Miliband holding the banana at Labour conference, if you remember that abortive coup. As I say, on a very narrow political level, for a couple of hours, it is a sort of clever play, but then you have to step back. And the reality is, we've got a situation at the moment where we have a Prime Minister in Downing Street who has almost 100 now of his own MPs and ministers have publicly said to him, you've got to go. Yeah. We've lost faith in you.
But he'll come back and his allies will say, I've got over 400 MPs.
Well, he's got over 400 at the moment. He's not going to have over 400, I suspect, in a couple of hours' time. But the reality is, obviously, the significance is that represents his parliamentary majority. So, he can potentially try and dig in for a few days or maybe even a couple of weeks. But the fact is, what have we got waiting the other side of this? We've got Queen's speech.
King's speech tomorrow. That's what people were wondering about. How the hell does that work if he resigns today?
We've got King's speech, right? Just imagine Kemi Badenoch. Just imagine the Tories here. That is going to be. It's going to be like Christmas has come early. Then we get out of the Queen's speech. What do we have next? Straight back into Peter Mandelson. Straight back into the next tranche of the Mandelson document. And then straight after that, we get into a broader political environment in which, obviously, the economic impact of what's been happening in the Middle East is going to come steaming down.
Yeah, we haven't really felt all of that. Well, that's interesting, actually. Even the economic impact of the instability we've seen for the last few days, to a certain extent, that it both sort of helps Keir Starmer. Look, the prospect of any of these other possible contenders, the markets aren't happy about. And at the same time, also people going, yeah, well, let's get the instability over and done with. But certainly, bond markets open up. Basically, we are paying, as a result of the stuff in the news at the moment, we are paying more on our interest on our government debts. That means more of our money that comes in taxes is going out in interest payments on those bonds rather than on public services, or indeed back in our own pockets in tax cuts.
Absolutely, and obviously we're going to see, the bond markets reacting to obviously the current instability, but the political reality is, and you and I and those of us that cover politics know this. This instability is not going to end. The reality is the instability is not going to end until Keir Starmer leaves Downing Street. You can't put this genie back in the bottle now. Have a parade of cabinet ministers saying, we think you should go, have a parade of your own MPs saying we've lost confidence with you and think you should go, and then try and turn around to the country. A country, remember, that only last week sent the very clear message to the Labour Party, get rid of this guy. That you can then effectively govern.
Well,
I mean, it's just
ultra-loyalist cabinet minister, the housing secretary Steve Reed. He's just posted on X. Again, that's amazing. I thought they were all in a cabinet meeting discussing the economy. This is not a game. This instability has consequences for people's lives. The people who will be hurt most will be those that elected us less than 2 years ago. We must unite behind the Prime Minister. Now, a lot of people are pointing out we are looking at, is it 6 Prime Ministers? In just a small matter of years. I mean, since 2016, you've got, you had Cameron, mind you, he chose to go. And then we had Theresa May, she was forced out. And then we had Boris Johnson, he was forced out. Liz Truss, she was forced out. Rishi Sunak lost the election. And now Keir Starmer. And we were told, I'm saying one of the reasons I think I find myself chuckling quite a lot about this is we were always told, oh, the grown-ups are in charge. Isn't the quiet lovely? Just a bit of calmness and sense, and we won't be talking about, personalities. We'll just get on with policy. That hasn't happened even for more than, I think, the first few weeks of Keir Starmer's premiership. It's been a disaster from word go in terms of poll ratings and forced, unforced errors and mistakes. If you had to put your money on it, I always like to ask people this, if you had to put your house on it, what happens and how quickly?
Well, today we are going to see just a number of MPs sort of expressing discontent at Keir Starmer. That will continue to increase and run on throughout the day. I suspect that members of the cabinet we'll have to wait and see what the cabinet readout is. I suspect members of the cabinet will have said to him, look, this position is untenable. We may be close now to potentially the first cabinet resignations. But frankly, Starmer has thrown everything up in the air by digging in. But as I say, the fundamental issue is the fundamental issue.
Yep.
The country said to Keir Starmer last week, we want you to go, and Labour MPs, ministers and cabinet ministers have now joined them. So if it's not in the next few hours, or maybe even in the next couple of days, the reality is
it's still going to happen.
At some point, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you'll find if you check more closely, it's still the media's fault, Dan. If you keep it going,
it's actually my fault.
100% your fault.
Fault.
I just want to ask you also just quickly about what happens here. Wes Streeting, he'll have to go now, or he realistically won't get it. Angela Rayner, still considered, a big player, not in the cabinet, but she's been very much at the forefront of pushing. In a speech yesterday, covered it live on the show, she was pushing for Andy Burnham to be given a chance to come back into Parliament. With this Kingo up in the north, over the water, and he's supposed to be the guy. No question at all. The man has much better communication skills, been a very popular figure, Manchester, since he's been mayor there, but he has been rejected twice by Labour as their leader for a reason. He certainly has talked about how we don't want to be in hock to the bond markets. Well, good luck with that if you want to borrow more. Why is Angela Rayner pushing for Andy Burnham to get back into Parliament when she may well be, the left-wing alternative to Wes Streeting and therefore very much likely to win among Labour Party members? Is she just playing a game, pretending she wants Andy Burnham back in so she can then, if the election period, if it does go ahead before he can get back into Parliament, she can win the Burnham votes? Or do you think she wants to be Deputy Prime Minister to Andy Burnham as Prime Minister? What are the shenanigans behind this?
The reality is, well, two things. Firstly, it's never been precisely clear that Angela Rayner wanted the top job. Obviously, that she's been pushed in the frame, but there is a perception within amongst her colleagues at Westminster that a lot of that is actually, in a sense, being generated by her inner circle and those around her, rather than Angela Rayner herself. The second reality is that over the last fortnight, as we've sort of reached the denouement of the Starmer crisis, it's become quite clear that a number of Angela Rayner's colleagues, even people who were quite supportive of her, have started to entertain serious doubts about the idea of her being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for a wide variety of reasons.
All of which are obvious.
Some of which, have obviously I myself have articulated over the last couple of weeks. But the real reality, the political reality is, my understanding is Labour MPs, obviously the issue of the succession was, Starmer potential succession was brought up on the doorsteps quite a lot in the local elections. And what actually surprised a lot of Angela Rayner's colleagues was there was quite an aggressive backlash, particularly from a constituency, the Red Wall, the North, a constituency that they had actually previously thought, well, these voters like Angela Rayner, they were actually surprised at the level of backlash directly linked to the issue of her tax affairs, and the fact that her tax, her non-payment of tax was a real issue for people.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it? I keep being told by people in Westminster it's not a story for people on the doorstep.
It's just a Westminster bubble issue. No, it was an issue. Which, by the way, when we're out of all this, Zach Polanski's got a bit of a problem with.
I mean, everyone seems to be so confused about where they live. All these people who don't know where they live and don't know whether they have to pay council tax or not. It's absolutely bizarre. Dan, it's been fantastic to have you on. I can't see you're the most amusing follow on social media at the moment. I cannot tell you. The man is on top of this. He's sleeping, eating, breathing this. Dan Hodges, commentator at the Mail on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your day. I have a funny feeling you will. Love to hear your thoughts on everything we discussed. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Before we go to break, got to give him a chance. We invite him into the studio, and there he is sitting there in silence. Jake Wallace-Simons, journalist and author. Look, we've often spoken to you about foreign affairs, about issues of anti-Semitism, things like that, and we've first had you on the show when you were editor of the Jewish Chronicle. But of course, you are a very long-standing news journalist, foreign affairs journalist, and you're a very close Westminster watcher as well. So it's great to get your thoughts on all of this. But the Prime Minister putting out, effectively a statement coming out while Cabinet is still ongoing. It started at 9:30. It's still ongoing. The Prime Minister getting out, trying to be on the front foot. He's not going to stand down. I mean, talk about a leaky Cabinet room. What do you make of his, did you say, defiance?
I actually feel quite relieved that Starmer actually has a principle, which is his own survival. I didn't think we'd see it. He seems to believe in nothing else. 16 U-turns on, welfare ID cards, blah, blah, blah. And now finally he believes in something which is himself. But I think we always knew it because, in the Corbyn years, he supported Corbyn, tried to get him into number 10, then said that he always opposed Corbyn, stabbed him in the back and purged the party of the Corbynistas. So we knew that really he was an operator. But cancelling the local elections, that another of his U-turns to attempt to cancel them and then fail, you can see why he wanted to do it, because he could see this coming down the pike. And I've got to say that my overall feeling about all this is that I want him to survive, because if he were to go, what would replace him would almost certainly be a lot better, as evidenced by the fact that our borrowing costs are now the highest since 1998.
And
you
way
thought Liz
higher
Truss
than...
was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this is even worse than that, because the markets are afraid that Starmer will be replaced by somebody who will tax and spend even more than we are already.
And that's the thing. Look, we are going to talk in the next hour to Paul Johnson, formerly of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, about the implications of this. Because, and again, people go, Andy Burnham has famously said, although he's trying to dampen this down now, we don't want to be in hock to the bond markets. Well, you don't get a choice. If you want to borrow, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of pounds, and then you pay interest on that, and it's based on the risk of you not repaying and what's going on in the country, then I'm afraid you are in hock to the bond. It's like me saying, I don't want to be in hock to the people who gave me my mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, then don't have a mortgage.
It's just another indication that we're governed by people who don't live in the real world. They're living in a fantasy world. They want to implement their ideology regardless of the effects on the country. We see that in tax and spend, welfareism, lack of investment in defence. I mean, that's criminal in my view, almost, speaking metaphorically.
And that goes both parties, both big parties.
Energy policy, net zero, still bankrupting the country, while China, sends hundreds of thousands of tonnes of CO2 into the atmosphere every year. NHS, immigration and assimilation. I mean, time and time again, they place their own sort of hollow principles that don't work ahead of the good of the nation. And right now, they're all engaged in this rats in a sack infighting. And who's running the country?
Well, exactly. If we're getting statements like that out of the cabinet, they certainly weren't discussing how they were going to bring down our cost of living, were they? Right. I mean, that is the reality. I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Hit the phones. I want to hear what you have to say. Question I put out before we had that readout from cabinet: should Keir Starmer resign, and who do you think will replace him? Goodness me, we've asked that question enough times on this show, have we not? I mean, I've said to you for a long time, he's toast. I said yesterday, he's not a dead man walking, he's a dead man crawling. And then I went, no, he is a dead man. He's gone. We all know he's gone. Everyone knows he's gone, apart from, it would appear, Keir Starmer. Now, I'm told by someone this morning, that someone who knows people very, very close, personally close to Keir Starmer, nothing to do with the Westminster world at all, that the pressure has got to him and he is going to go. Now, that's not what we're hearing from the cabinet. Does he think he can front it out? Do you think he can front it out? I want to hear your response to Keir Starmer basically saying he is not going to stand down. Do you think he's living in cloud cuckoo land? Is it the most ironic thing that actually, if he did listen for once and listen to what people actually were telling him, close to him, and indeed the nation who voted in those local Scottish and Welsh elections, then you'd think, oh, actually, he's not so awful because he's actually listening. The fact that he's not listening proves just how absolutely clothed this man is. If he seriously thought that a speech yesterday where he said we were going to nationalise British steel and to basically try and go in by crook or by crook back into the EU was going to be the answer to all his prayers, the man, as I've been saying for quite a long time now, is delusional. But voters aren't delusional, and MPs who are worried about paying their mortgage in a few years' time, they're not delusional either. Neither the councillors are all out of a job, out of that power. They love that power, and that started their political careers, and indeed the 10 grand or up to 30 grand that they're getting in expenses. They're not delusional. They see the writing on the wall. What do you think is going to happen today? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow? How the hell do we have a King's Speech with a Prime Minister who doesn't command support among a large swathe of his own party? Or do you rather admire the Prime Minister standing there saying, no, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. You can find another candidate to stand against me. Go for it. But you haven't got one yet. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Also the home of your phone calls on 0344 499 1000. The trouble with me reading that number out is we've currently got a problem with our phone lines, and the phone lines are currently down, and I can't get a single call on there. I'm genuinely horrified because I know so many of you will be trying. I think you're getting invalid number when you try to send us a message. So you can get in touch with us. I don't know whether our texts are working, but certainly our tweets are working. So reply to our messages that I put out and Talk's put out in the last hour asking you to get in touch, and we can get those messages on at least. I'm absolutely horrified about that. We are doing our best to get those phone lines back up and running, but who knows what's going on? It's probably a conspiracy, isn't it? Let's get some of your messages, though. Should Keir Starmer resign? Who do you think will replace him? Jason says, absolutely not. Chris wants Nigel Farage. Vicky says, West Streeting. Tom says, no, if he stays, he will help destroy Labour for a generation, just like Boris did to the Conservatives. Matthew says, Miliband. Short term, will rot the country. Long term, hands the keys to Nigel. Guy says, no, he shouldn't resign, as there's nobody better to replace him. Mark says he will never resign. These people never do. I mean, to be fair, yeah, that's probably most accurate given what we've heard from Cabinet today. Angela says, again, I always worry, which Angela is this? Ange, love. He ought to, but replacing one idiot with another would not do any good. We need an election. I don't think that was Angela Rayner. I'm going out on a limb. Marco says, I think the system is broken. Look at who's going to replace him. And this is the issue, isn't it? Jake Wallace-Simons joining me in the studio is, what happens next? Yeah. And that is the key thing, because the runners and riders, Wes Streeting, well-placed Health Secretary, but seems to be on the right of the party. He had his links with Peter Mandelson, who in this government hasn't had links with Peter Mandelson, his fingers in every little pie. But that's going to be an issue. He's seen to be sort of Blairite on the right. Well, that's not where the Labour Party is and not where the Labour backbenchers are, is it? And then you've got Shabana Mahmood, again, seen as far too right-wing. I mean, that's not even a starter. Angela Rayner could run, but interesting what Dan Hodges was saying a bit earlier, that on the doorsteps, actually the feedback on her not paying her full stamp duty on her second property and claiming, she didn't think she had to, and still being investigated by HMRC, that is not playing well with voters. I love that they're surprised by this.
Yeah. I mean, the bizarre thing about all of this is that what the country needs is something less left-wing, an administration that's less left-wing, even centrist. I'd settle for centrist at this point.
Well, centrist now is left-wing, right, because wanting borders and people to go to prison if they commit serious crime is now far right.
Yeah, I mean, William Hague had an interesting column in the Times today talking about Canada and Australia and how they're doing well under centre-left governments, but they're actually much more, we would say right-wing in the current climate, on immigration, on energy, on defence and tax. And yet we've got a government and a Labour Party that wishes the current Prime Minister to be replaced by somebody more left-wing.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, and so, as Kemi said, they're fighting about who wants to be driving the car, but it's on the wrong road, going to the wrong destination, and the further left they go, the faster the accelerator is going to be pushed down on the floor, cruising towards disaster.
Well, Andy Burnham, again, it seems someone who's very, very popular. Certainly he's popular among Labour Party members. He's very much popular among the electorate generally. But again, it's easy to be popular when you've not been in government, you're not having to take responsibility, and you've been able to be critical, isn't it? That's much easier. So he played an absolute blinder as Mayor of Manchester during the lockdown, don't forget about us, don't forget to give us help if you're going to be locking us down, and tier 4ing and tier 3ing and all of that. And all credit to him, he's a very good communicator. But he is on the left of the party, such as we know what his views are. He was called Flip-Flop Andy the first 2 times he ran for the Labour leadership, which he didn't win. It's a big way. I suppose Ed Miliband is also an option. Don't stop sniggering at the back.
Can't believe you just
genuinely, we're in a country where people could consider Ed Miliband. He's already been rejected by the country, once. It's mind-blowing to think he was Labour leader and stood in the 2015 election. But going back to Andy Burnham, everything's predicated on A, there being an MP, we're told there is, Clive Lewis or someone else, who will give up their completely safe seat, and then Andy Burnham stands in it. B,
him winning the by-election.
Yes, anything such as something called a safe seat exists for Labour anymore, with everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at it, and a bit of tactical voting as well. and the NEC allowing Andy Burnham stand, and everyone waiting for him to get back into power, into being a backbench MP to then run for the top job. I can't quite see that happening at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and Andy Burnham, he is the only Labour politician, in fact, I think the only frontline politician with a net approval rating that's actually in the positive numbers at the moment,
he's not in office,
which is a huge advantage. But I think, like you say, it's a bit of a mirage, because you do find there's an element of novelty in all of this. Remember the Brown bounce going back years? Theresa May also was seduced by her soaring poll numbers when she first took over to call that election that strong and stable disaster that ended up with her being decimated. So we see that again and again. It's always fool's gold to believe in that sort of thing. And let's not forget, as you pointed out, that Burnham in 2010 came behind Miliband E, Miliband D, and Ed Balls.
Wow.
And in 2015, he was behind Jeremy Corbyn. So he is not the most popular person.
Here's the thing,
when
though,
his feet are
he's
held
got
to
a
the
much
fire.
better chance than Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner, simply because he, like Andy Burnham, is a straight white man. And unless you're not up to date with Labour Party rules for electing a leader, you are required to be a straight white man. We're all in favour of diversity. We're obsessed
Just not
with
when it comes to leadership.
First, first economist who's a woman, first chancellor who's a woman, first everything, first police officer. They can't stop yapping on about it. If you're going to be Labour leader, you have to be a straight white man.
And the delicious irony of all of this is that Kemi Bates, not only a woman but a black woman, never mentions it, because she doesn't play that game, because it is irrelevant in modern Britain.
10:33 is the time. I want to go with your calls and I can't because our phone lines are still down. I promise you I'll update you as soon. Or let us know if you keep trying when it stops saying, number not valid. It is valid. We're trying to get those phone lines back up and running. Do send us messages on social media there. I'm looking at this board and it's breaking my heart. I know how many of you want to have your say. And after the unbelievably brilliant calls yesterday, Stuart from Wigan, there is not the vocabulary in the English language to express how much I hate Keir Starmer. Gone pretty viral. I know we want to get you on air. What are we going to do without Georgina today? Seriously, what are we going to do? Right, 10:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be hearing from a former Labour Party official, Richard Power Sayeed. What does he think is going to happen? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer and this is Talk. Let's go to my next guest, Richard Power Sayeed. He's a former Labour Party official back until 2021. He's also author of 1997, The Future That Never Happened, A History of New Labour. A very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I wonder what the next book will be in terms of the future that never happened, that two-term office for Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister. Richard, first question I have to ask you is when the Prime Minister puts out a statement, as well, unofficial, but, these things come out even before Cabinet is finished, but the political editors are all reporting it, basically signalling he will not stand down, telling the cabinet that the process for challenging a leader has not been triggered. That's 81 MPs publicly stating they support one candidate and therefore triggering that process, and that he's basically not going unless or until that happens, and saying that the past 48 hours have been destabilising for the government and that has a real economic cost for our country and for families. Do you think that is a sustainable position?
So I think that he's going to have to go. Let's be honest about it. I think the public and everyone else has made that pretty clear. But I think there's a really big question now about the mechanics of what happens in the Labour Party. Let's be honest about it. It all comes down to the gruesome details of the politics of, can Wes Streeting get enough of his runners and riders to make life really difficult for the Prime Minister. Otherwise, I think we can have a slightly more open contest where we all have all of our best players on the pitch and we get to decide who's actually worthy of the top job.
Who are those best players?
Look, I think Andy Burnham would be a really strong candidate. He's the obvious one. Yeah, I think he probably is. Look, he has done something very significant in Manchester in terms of leading it to having the highest growth of any city region in Northern Europe. And what's amazing, and really I think quite special for Andy as a politician, is that he combines that with a real commitment to fairness. You know, growth and fairness is surely what the Labour Party should be about.
I'm always fascinated by that.
Well, in his case, it means being a true believer in council housing. It means using the power of the state to bring down people's bills by doing things like bringing buses back into public ownership so the bus fares are fair. Like, that seems to me to be exactly what you want from a Prime Minister, somebody who believes in growth and fairness. And at the moment, of course, we don't have that option, but I would like us to have that option for Prime Minister and for Labour leader.
Well, I mean, again, it sounds to me like fairness just means higher taxes to pay for more handouts.
I don't think that higher taxes on the super rich is an unreasonable thing.
Well,
we've had
everyone talks about that, but how many super rich do you think are going to be around? We've lost quite a lot of them already.
Actually, that's a bit of a misnomer. When the data that we have on that initially came from a bunch of LinkedIn posts, and when people properly looked into it, it turned out that far fewer of the super rich had left, despite, I might point out, the right-wing media constantly crowing about how it was going to happen. It's a little bit of a myth.
I mean, I personally know people who are preparing to leave as and when necessary, and people who have left, and they're not even the super rich, interestingly. Or they wouldn't certainly consider themselves.
It's a shame to hear that your friends are so unpatriotic, Julia.
I know. I'm saying I know people. They might not necessarily be friends, but there we are. I mean, you've got an awful lot of unpatriotic people like Angela Rayner running for the leadership, doesn't even pay her own stamp duty when she's the housing secretary, brought it in.
I think that's an unfair description of what happened to Angela Rayner, and she
was the housing secretary as well as deputy prime minister. She brought in a tax that basically raised your stamp duty for buying a second home. She bought a second home. She was advised by everyone involved in that process, all the needed to get specialist tax advice on whether she had to pay that extra stamp duty or not. She chose not to get it, didn't pay the tax. She's been found out. She lost her job as a result of it. I'm pretty sure that's a very fair way of describing that situation.
You missed out the bit where she got told not to pay the tax.
But by someone who was not a specialist. And she got told
by a law not to pay it. Anyway, I think we are quite frankly, this is yesterday's fight.
No, it's not. It's not yesterday's, because that's one of the reasons why she can't run for the leadership right now. It's difficult to run, isn't it? It's not yesterday's. But you said people leaving the country, not paying their taxes, unpatriotic. I think a lot of people feel that way about people not paying their taxes, but people in the country as well also expect other people to pay their taxes. So you reckon Andy Burnham is the best bet. Here's the thing. Is it likely that any leadership contest, if there is a leadership contest, as many expect there will be, when there is a timetable laid out for the Prime Minister to go, although interestingly, we have seen cabinet ministers now coming out down the street, speaking to reporters who are waiting out there. All the political editors are out there, the likes of Liz Kendall, the likes of Peter Kyle, and Peter Kyle, very close ally of Wes Streeting, and we'll find out what they've been saying. They seem to be, all trying to sort of speak from the same hymn book at the moment. But is it likely that if there were to be a leadership contest, that it would wait long enough for Andy Burnham to be given permission to stand for a safe seat, B, for him to win a supposedly safe seat, and C, for him to get back into Parliament to actually be able to run in that contest?
Well, I think it's, you know, as I said at the beginning, I do think that there's a tension here between the kind of raw politics of, as you say, Peter Kyle and Liz Kendall wanting to make it easy for streeting versus us having an orderly transition where things aren't decided, you know, in kind of backroom deals in smoke-filled rooms, where instead we, you know, choose a new leader according to the rule book in the way that everybody's been expecting. And there's an open debate, and all of the best options are on the table. It seems to me that there's those are the two options. You can imagine which one I think is better for the country.
It's interesting, the Prime Minister, well, you know, apparently we're told the Cabinet this morning that that the past 48 hours have been destabilising for government and has real economic cost for our country and for families. We know that, you know, the bond markets, you know, cost of borrowing has gone up, and gone up considerably in the wake of the possibility of the Prime Minister resigning. And that the prospect of any of the other possible people who could take over for him causing greater instability. I think particularly people are concerned about this prospect of Ed Miliband perhaps moving to number 11 as Chancellor. Does that make you and others in the Labour Party think twice about changing Prime Minister?
I don't think anybody likes the fact that we are going to change Prime Minister. I don't think anybody looks at that and says, oh, what a great look for Labour, or indeed a great look for the country. We are well aware of how annoyed people got when this sort of thing happened under the Tories. We're well aware of the impact that it has. I mean, it's not a nice experience for us in the Labour Party as well. The point is this, right? Keir Starmer's had quite a lot of chances. He's not taken them. And that's resulted in him being, I'd say, like terminally unstable as a leader. Now, if he turned around tomorrow and said, you know what, I haven't just listened, I'm not just going to say some nice words, I'm actually going to put our best foot forward, use the power of the state to bring down people's bills, start helping people properly with the cost of living, be the bold Prime Minister that I was elected to be, I'd give him a chance. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that'd be fantastic. And that would be, hypothetically, that would be the thing that makes a leadership election unnecessary. But he's repeatedly had that chance, and he's repeatedly not taken it. Yeah. And it does seem to be something to do with his political personality. And it's a bit of a tragedy, right? Because he had a good chance. Yeah,
oh, absolutely. I mean, God, anyone would be elected with a 400 set of MPs, massive majority, 170. The idea that he's basically achieved pretty much nothing. It is Shakespearean levels of tragedy. But this is the thing. His speech yesterday, he talked about, you know, nationalising British steel and basically taking us in by hook or by crook without us really noticing back into the EU. And for some reason thinks that's the big winning message. But the reality is what we need lower taxes on business so business can boom. We need to stop, you know, mass illegal immigration, mass legal immigration, welfare booming, the things that actually, net zero, the things that actually need to be done to fix the economy, to fix our society, to actually get voters on side. He is neither willing nor able to do. Whether he is willing, his backbenchers certainly aren't willing, many in the Labour Party aren't willing. He has misidentified the problems facing our country, which is why he can't fix them. But I would suggest that all of the runners and riders who want to take over his job also have completely misdiagnosed the problem.
Well, countries comparable to the UK that have got higher tax intakes and stronger welfare systems also have stronger growth. So you're on that one. Immigration is something that makes our country wealthier, more prosperous, more diverse.
But it doesn't. The stats simply don't back that up.
Net zero is the only way that we can possibly get off the fossil fuel roller coaster.
Simply not true. Not going to happen. So these are just. Yeah. But you can say these things, but it doesn't make them true.
What you've been spouting is like your particular policy bugbears, and it's got nothing to do with the country.
I'm not an expert in either of those things. I just understand facts.
Well, I understand the energy market because that's what I research, and I'm telling you that there's no way for us to get off the fossil fuel roller coaster of prices that Putin and Trump can control unless we start using a different fuel.
We don't buy any of our gas or oil from Putin, and really haven't. Barely ever have.
Well, there you go. There you go, Julia. Not understanding how the energy market
Putin
works.
does not
they control the prices.
Putin does not
control the prices.
Putin does not control the energy market. In this
controls
country,
the prices.
He does not. He
literally does. That's what the Ukraine war was about.
On the world market. Richard, just got to ask you, because I'm always fascinated. I don't want to go down a long route, but when do you think we're getting off fossil fuel dependency, just out of interest?
Oh, it would take about 2.5 decades, I'd say.
2.5 decades. And that's for all energy?
That's for all energy, and that's like down to kind of like very, very small amounts. So yeah, it'll take ages.
Very, very, very small amount. Okay, and that's net zero, or we're just not using fossil fuels at all?
There'll be I think you'd have to carry on using a small amount for some production methods forever.
With all due respect, and you know I'm very fond of you, Richard, I think you need to do more research in this area, because there isn't a single person who understands a thing about energy and how we build things and how we make things who thinks that there is snowball's chance in hell of that happening. I mean, that is literally risible. Even if you were saying about electricity, it would be risible. But about our entire energy needs, I mean, not even on the cards. Not even a scintilla of a tiny iota of a possibility. And that's what your party believes. You believe in fairies in the bottom of the garden. That's why you can't tackle the issues that people are actually worried about.
Well, look, here's an answer for you, Julia. You want us to carry on being dependent on the fossil fuels, the price of which people like Donald Trump and
Donald Trump
are constantly manipulating. And I want us to be using the free, clean, renewable energy that is blowing in the wind right now.
How come energy prices are 4 times cheaper in America for business than they are in this country?
Because we put the investment costs through levies, and they put investment costs elsewhere. It's
okay.
We're transitioning to a system where we're
Richard, not. Let's go back to the subject. I can never get myself off this, because I know no one is ever challenged on this on mainstream channels. I know you need to do the challenge. I just want to know from you, what do you think is going to happen today? Tomorrow, we've got the King's Speech tomorrow. This week, the rest of the year. What do you, if you had to put your money on it, what do you think is going to happen?
No, I wouldn't put any money on it, frankly. But I think the likelihood is that you'll see a drip of junior front benchers going, but I would be surprised if we saw any big names. As one wag put it on social media yesterday, we'll know it's serious when we actually have a hell of a clue of who any of these people are when they resign. But there we are. Richard Power Sayeed, it's great to talk to you, a former Labour Party official. I think he's great on Labour politics, but Jake Wallace-Simons, again, I'm always just utterly fascinated when people talk about things like net zero. Net zero is one of the reasons why we're in the economic mess we're in. I mean, we've got the Ukraine war, we've got lockdown, we've got welfare dependency, over-regulation, I mean, you name it. We've got a million things that are wrong with the country. Net zero is absolutely not helping anything, and it's making things a damn sight worse. And you've got a Labour Party that is entirely committed to net zero. We haven't got a chance of having an improving economy if that's what they believe.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, to everyone watching at home, that was even more entertaining sitting here in the studio than it would have been watching at home. It made me realise how few lefties I actually speak to, because here's a living, breathing human being who defends Angela Rayner.
He's a bright guy, he knows his stuff.
Defends Angela Rayner, paeans of praise to Andy Burnham, thinks that reducing bus fares, nationalising the bus service is the silver bullet to fix the economy.
If only.
And actually believes that the rich haven't left Britain. I mean, what is it, let alone the energy stuff?
And that the super rich are not paying a hell of a lot of the taxes.
I mean, it's just hilarious that these people live. But the thing is that these people are in charge of the country,
and will be.
And when Keir Starmer goes, which I think is when and not if, there'll be somebody even more like that chap in his place, running the country into the ground even more quickly with these left-wing policies.
Well, look, we've had ministers leaving the cabinet meeting, and I'll let you know actually what they've been saying after we take a quick break. But you do not want to miss this. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:53 is the time. Just a reminder, we're not getting your phone calls on, not because I'm ignoring you, not because you're not calling in, because you absolutely are. But 0344 499 is the number that you can normally call in, but you can't because our phone lines are currently down. We are doing our best to try and get those mended so we can hear your voices. We absolutely do want to hear from you. Jake Wallace-Simons would like to say, journalist and author, is joining me in the studio. Let's get to what the members of the Cabinet have said as they've left Cabinet in the last 20 minutes or so. We had the Business Secretary, Peter Carl, close ally of Wes Streeting, saying Keir is showing steadfast leadership. Wes Streeting himself actually left without saying anything to anybody. Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, has said the Prime Minister has his full support. Liz Kendall, Science Secretary, let's face it, no, she's out of a job if the Prime Minister goes. I mean, come on. Already out. I mean, so out of her depth. The Prime Minister has my full support. There is a process to challenge the leader. Nobody has made that challenge. That's not full support, is it? Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary, again, a complete and utter loyalist to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is going to continue with his job, as he should, and I'm going to continue with mine. Is that, I don't know if that's the biggest, most full support I've ever heard. Now, there has been, we know that the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and we know that the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, among those. We think the third is John Healey, the Defence Secretary, who went to see the Prime Minister last night. So the ministerial cars were seen there, Downing Street, and we know that there was conversation. Basically, we're told they were saying you need to set a timetable to go. This is going to be humiliating. There's some reports that the Home Secretary has told the Prime Minister that he should go. We are now, getting close around the 90 mark of MPs. We've now got ministers. We've had PPSs, so these are sort of the ministerial bag carriers, the first rung of the ministerial ladder. We had 6 of them go yesterday, and it was extraordinary to see the Prime Minister appointing 6 new people. You've got to love the people saying, I will take that job. They're going to last as long as Gordon Brown and Harriet Harman in their jobs. But do you think the Prime Minister can actually shore himself up by saying, look, I'm getting on with it, and unless or until you put up 81 people who don't tell me they want me to go, but tell me they are backing another specific person, I'm not leaving?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the Prime Minister overseeing a counter manoeuvre against anybody seeking to bring him down. I mean, those 4 names that you mentioned coming out of the Cabinet meeting and then briefing journalists on camera, that's very unusual. People rarely do that. All speaking out, maybe some stronger than others, but essentially in favour of the Prime Minister. The only 4 people, I suppose, who were willing to do that. And in the meeting itself, we thought that those 6 Cabinet ministers were going to demand that he quit. They were Shabana Mahmood, John Healey, Ed Miliband, Lisa Nandy, and 1 or 2 others. And the Prime Minister didn't give them a chance to speak. He instead opened with a message of defiance, then diverted the conversation talking about policy and the Iran war. So he closed them down, came out fighting afterwards as well. We are seeing him digging in and refusing to give way, and not only that, but mounting a counter-offensive against the rebels at the same time, which you've got to say is pretty ballsy for somebody in such trouble at the moment. I
mean, it is pretty ballsy, and it's what's interesting, of course. This is a man who doesn't have a permanent chief of staff. He's gone through stuff like just like I go through cups of tea on the show, for goodness sake, some of my tea cups last longer than his staff, but he doesn't have perhaps a machine. He doesn't have those hard men. He doesn't have the Alistair Campbells, the people who can go, oi, push him against the wall. You're backing the Prime Minister, aren't you? I'll break you. At the end of the day, he's in office, yes. For how long? But he's certainly not in power. He has no room for manoeuvre. Now, although the official tally is now 78 MPs. Now, some of those are people who are bag carriers for ministers. And those bag carriers are going to be going, hold on a minute, I've resigned my job. Oi, you were going to push him out. I'm now out of a job. I'm off the rung of the ladder. If he stays, then, no thank you. They're going to start getting very, very cross. But we are looking at, crucially, basically the best part of a quarter. I mean, bearing in mind, you've got, 120 people on the payroll, and then you've got like the 78, 80 plus who are against, you've got basically, an awful lot of the party has not, the MPs have either not spoken or are saying not standing with you, Prime Minister. Do you think it's remotely tenable that he lasts the week?
Well, the thing about Starmer is that he hasn't got any principles. We know that from the endless U-turns. He hasn't got any concern for the national interest, because if he did, having seen the state of the country now, he would resign. And he hasn't got any political dexterity or any feeling for the job. But what he has got is a steely determination to keep it. That's pretty much the only thing that he's had from the beginning of his political career until the present.
Yeah.
And you just see him, digging in, refusing to move, doing his best to survive at all costs, and rallying whatever troops he can to his corner. So I think that it's likely that he's going to survive perhaps until the end of the day, another few more days. Labour's got to get to this 81 list of 81 MPs willing to stand against him, but they've all got to support one candidate,
and that's
not split across multiple candidates.
That is very crucial.
And you've also got Andy Burnham waiting in the wings as well, who isn't able to come to Parliament just yet.
I'm still fascinated. Do you know what? I do think the Downing Street line, which is that he chose to leave Parliament, he chose to stand for the Mayoralty, he knew the rules. You can't just do that for a few years. He said he specifically said he would stand for a 5-year term. I think they've got a fair argument there, to be honest. And by the way, if you seriously think that Andy Burnham is the answer to all the problems, when he's signed up to enough of the Labour madness as the current Prime Minister, in fact, even worse. I mean, I've got a bridge to sell you. It's just over there. Coming up to the top of the hour, lots more top guests to come, lots more analysis. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is fabulous to have your company. If you've missed anything from the show so far, frankly, why would you do that? Do go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing, and I can stop nagging you about it. Coming up in this hour, well, Cabinet has finished. We had a statement about 20 minutes, half an hour into Cabinet from, basically the allies at number 10 of the Prime Minister, saying he ain't going anywhere. We've now had a whole bunch of loyalists coming out of Cabinet telling us that the Prime Minister is showing steadfast leadership. That was Peter Kyle, the Business Secretary. Has the full support of Liz Kendall, the full support from Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, and Work and Pension Secretary Steve McPadden has said the Prime Minister is going to continue with his job as he should, and I'm going to continue with mine. Not the fullest endorsement I've ever heard, but there we are. But the Prime Minister says he's sticking to it. He's got the King's speech tomorrow, of course. He wants to get on with the job. He says that destabilising the government is having an economic impact, and it certainly is. Just have a look at the bond markets. You don't know about the bond markets. Why would you need to know about the bond markets? Well, you will know about the bond markets because when we actually borrow hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of pounds and we have to pay interest on that, and the cost of that interest goes up because of the shenanigans in our government, then we end up paying more. And that money is paid for out of your and my taxes. So every single penny we pay in tax that goes on paying that interest, and that increased interest, we've seen that for a number of years now because of the instability and very, very poor choices of our governments of all different political hues. That is money that is either not spent on public services or defence or other crucial things, or not given back to us. Our own money to spend as we choose. So you can not really care about the bond markets, or as Andy Burnham famously said, not being hawked the bond markets. But yeah, we don't really get a choice about that. So we're going to be discussing today whether or not Keir Starmer will resign. Sounds like he's not going to go, but will there be the challenge? He says, there has to be a proper challenge. Will 81 MPs not say they want the Prime Minister to set out a timetable for change, which is what so far 78 have formally done, but we're told there are more coming, including, we had one minister this morning as well. But will 81 Labour MPs say, I am backing one particular candidate and I will basically trigger a leadership contest like that? Well, the most likely contenders to that are Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner. But will they want to go over the top? There's always that fear, isn't there, that he who wields the sword never wears the crown. But this may be Keir Starmer's Keir Starmer's chance to stay in the job, but also Wes Streeting the only chance of winning any leadership contest before, unless or until, Andy Burnham can get back into power. We're going to be talking about all of that. Small matter at Zach Polanski not knowing where he lives and not paying his full council tax. What is it with all these politicians? And yeah, I'm going to include reform in this as well, but Labour certainly with Angela Rayner and others. Well, sorry, why can't you all just pay your full tax? Everyone else manages to do it, and when we don't, we get in a hell of a lot of trouble. We don't get to just say sorry. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Unfortunately, can't hear your thoughts on the phone lines right now. Our phone lines are, for some reason, not working. I'm absolutely gutted about that. However, I believe you can still text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can also send us a message on X. We put out a question earlier about 9:30 on my Twitter feed at JuliaHP1 and on the talkTV feed, and you can answer that and then we'll get those messages on air. And so we'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on everything that's going on. Crucially, do you think Keir Starmer's going to resign? He basically saying he won't go. Well, and who do you think and who do you want to replace him? I'm delighted to say that Jake Wallace-Simons, journalist and author, is still joining me in the studio, as he is for the entire show. It is absolutely fascinating, isn't it, that we got that statement from the Prime Minister's, basically his, putting out what he'd said from Cabinet while Cabinet was still ongoing. And we've heard that, for all intents and purposes, he shut down, as you were saying a few moments ago, he basically shut down any debate about this issue at the beginning of Cabinet. Wes Streeting was the only Cabinet Minister just left, did not speak to anybody. Do you think that this isn't going to be the end of the matter today?
I think that as time goes on, as the day wears on, it's becoming less likely that Keir Starmer is going to be toppled today, or even perhaps tomorrow, or even in the coming weeks. Well, because the thing is that Starmer, he's obviously digging in, he's determined to fight, to be defiant and to survive in his job. Why he wants to survive in the job is a big question mark. I have no idea, given the state of the country right now and his performance and his popularity or lack of. But he wants to survive, and structurally he's got a big advantage, which is that Andy Burnham isn't in Parliament, and a lot of the people that want Starmer gone want Andy Burnham to be his replacement. So Starmer's saying, look, come and get me, as you put it, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. And I think it's a fair bet that they won't be hard enough, because replacing Starmer now will mean probably Wes Streeting, and a lot of his Starmer's opponents don't want Wes Streeting, and so Starmer could potentially survive for weeks, months ahead.
I still don't think it'd be Wes Streeting. I think it would be Angela Rayner, given a choice to the Labour Party members. Well, look, let's put this to our next guest, columnist at the Sun newspaper, David Wooding, and a long time political reporter and editor. Very good morning to you, David.
Morning, Julia.
Lovely to speak to you. I suppose just big picture, what do you make of where we are and what we've learnt this morning?
It's crazy, isn't it? All the papers this morning are out of date within minutes, saying Keir Starmer on the brink, and now we find out he isn't. And as Jake just said there, he could be clinging on by his fingertips for weeks to come yet. There's shades here of Gordon Brown in 2010 when he was branded the squatter living in number 10. And there seems to be shades of that going on now. I half expect sandbags to be outside the door of number 10 soon, and trenches dug out near the gates of Whitehall. He really is digging in here, and the message clearly hasn't got through to him that it's time to go.
No, indeed. I was rather hoping this morning, on behalf of middle-aged hormonal women, that we get a bit of a shot of hot lectern guy. There's always this rather hot young chap, rather muscly in a T-shirt, who puts out the lectern for the Prime Ministers when they resign or make a big statement, and he's there to sort of get them to sort of focus their cameras before the Prime Minister comes out. But sadly, we may not be seeing that today, which I think is very unfair.
Today was the ideal day, Julia, because, it's not raining, it's sunny. I mean, poor old Rishi, when he did it, he got soaked. But, one of the issues here is Labour is in a bit of a mess, whatever happens here, because if he does resign, it'll just add to that feeling of they're all the same, which is playing into the hands of the Greens and Reform. Because, like the Conservatives, when things go wrong, they just knife their Prime Minister and get another one in. So they're trying to resist that. But if they resist that, they've got, I wouldn't call him a lame duck Prime Minister, he's a legless Prime Minister stuck in there. And so whatever they do is bad. And if they do replace him, I mean, for God's sake, who's going to take over? Who's going to be better than Keir Starmer?
And that is the key thing. And there's an awful lot of people, I suppose, on my side of the political debate, I would say, are saying, well, hold on a minute. Do we want to lose this guy? Because the next lot is going to be worse. Burnham might be a better communicator if he can get back into Parliament, and he would, and even though his policies would be to the left, he would be a better communicator. The public might like him. And again, what's not to like? Tax those people over there, those rich people we don't know over there, and then we'll all have a better life. They think. I mean, God bless them for thinking that. It won't work out that way, as we all know. It's been tried before, never works out well. But Angela Rayner's, the Ed Miliband's, anyone else, even Wes Streeting, who's seen on the right of the party, but still he's properly on the left. That actually everything they're going to do to the country will be a bad thing for most of us, in which case would we not be better off having Keir Starmer in office, pretty rubbish, not absolutely so abysmal that the bond markets completely explode and our country, we have to go cap in hand to the IMF again or anything like that, but maybe he's the better of the terrible options we've got.
Well, possibly, and I think the one thing that is a given really at this stage is that Labour are going to lose the next election, whoever's at the helm. The big problem with Andy Burnham, I see, Julia, is, and you and I know him back from the Tony Blair years, when he was a real die-hard Blairite, centre, middle-of-the-road person. Then when he ran for leadership twice and failed twice, he had different agendas each time, and nobody seems to know what he stands for. He's a bit of a flip-flopper. So he would be not quite, we all say he'd be soft left. He probably would be to the left because that's what the party wants at the moment for some unknown reason. But we really don't know what he would stand for if he got in, because I don't think Andy Burnham knows what he stands for.
Well, he stood for the Labour leadership twice and he was called Flip-Flop Andy. Now, here's the thing. Everything is predicated on, is there going to be enough time for him to get back into a Parliament and for him to actually, then run a leadership campaign himself? And we know there are lots of MPs who think he's the best, but he's certainly on polling. He's the most popular among Labour Party members. He's the most popular right now, but also, crucially, among the general public. He's got one of the only political people in the country He's got a net positive rating. I would argue that's because he's not in charge of anything right now other than Manchester. And a lot of the talk about what he's done in Manchester, I'm reliably informed, is pretty overblown. But he has been there at a good time. And I think he did, I say, he played a blinder during the lockdown period for the people of Manchester, and indeed the rest of the north as well, who were being soundly ignored by the government in terms of their needs. But here's the thing. He has to stand in a safe Labour seat. Someone's got to give up a seat. He stands in it, and he's got to win it. Is there any such thing as a safe Labour seat anymore?
Well, no. If you look at Manchester, his own backyard, in Wigan, which is part of Greater Manchester, I think they lost 22 seats to Reform Party, and that's where Lisa Nandy is the MP.
Yeah.
And in Tameside, which is the council area which has the ground of Manchester United, that lost lots of seats. I think they lost overall control of Tameside, if my memory serves me right. So there's lots of votes going against Labour there. So nothing is a given if he stands there. Of course, he has the bit of a personality factor, which would help him if it was in that area, because they all know who he is. And they do like him there. He stands up for the North. That's why he's popular. Yeah. He says, I'm not from Westminster, although those of us who've worked with him down here know that he's never been outside the bubble until he went to Manchester. But he plays that as his unique selling point. Yeah. And they say, yeah, you're against the people down in Westminster. But of course, once he comes down here, he's then going to translate that to the rest of the country.
Yeah, and this is part of the problem, isn't it? That whoever is in office, and I would actually argue this would be the case whether it was the Tories or Reform or Greens or anyone who wins the next election or a coalition thereof, is that actually they've still got the same issues. Labour in particular have got the backbenchers. They've got a whole load of backbenchers who I would say are completely and utterly economically illiterate, who think that we can just tax those people over there more, give out more money, more people on welfare, more on this, more pay rises for teachers, more this and that, and that everything will suddenly be fine. That is not living in the real world. Whoever becomes Labour leader this time round, whether it's in a matter of weeks or months or the next year, has got exactly the same problems. They've got these international conflicts. They've got the net zero madness, which is holding us back. They've got all the other issues with ballooning welfare bill, the pensions rise, the NHS still in crisis, massive concern about mass illegal immigration and mass legal immigration too. By the way, none of which was addressed by the Prime Minister in his big reset speech yesterday, very interestingly. But is there anyone in the Labour Party who, with that collection of backbenchers, who is able to take on the actual problems that we've actually got right now?
Well, the answers that we're hearing, Julia, is the complete opposite of what's required. They're all saying where Keir Starmer is going wrong is he's not looking after the poor enough. He's not giving enough welfare. He's being, we don't like Shabana Mahmood's crackdown on migration. Don't spend more money. Let's rejoin the EU. Yeah. All the solutions they have are the complete opposite of what people want. It's quite clear what people want because of the way they voted in the local elections. They want a crackdown on migration. They want welfare bills cut. They want taxes cut. They want the cost of living dealing with. And none of that is being addressed by the current government. And it can't be. Well, you see, this is the other problem that Keir Starmer stays in. Every living moment he's in there, and the people who've been coming outside Number 10 and making statements today, will be spent shoring up his prime ministership. Yeah. It will not be
tackling the cost of living. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And apparently he shut this down at Cabinet very quickly. Now, it was very noticeable that Wes Streeting, when he left a Cabinet, everyone else coming out and saying their words of support. And we've been having a camera live while we're talking. It's up for those who are watching on YouTube. They can see we've having various ministers coming out, and I mean they're all just saying the same similar sorts of things, just going through the motions. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary and likely first challenger, completely ignored reporters. Everyone was shouting to him. He just walked straight out, stony-faced, and just left. Now, do you think realistically he is going to basically call the Prime Minister's bluff? And we've been told for the last couple of weeks in the Sunday papers he's got more than 81 MPs willing to back him if he goes for it. Do you think he's going to go over the top?
Well, I think he should. His chance is there now. I mean, remember David Miliband had an opportunity to go for it and blinked.
It, yeah.
And then, of course, Ed Miliband, his brother, stabbed him in the back and won the crown.
And didn't that go well?
It didn't. Absolutely. So if he goes now, we've got Andy Burnham left out on a limb without a seat, unable to mount a challenge. The only person realistically, Ed Miliband perhaps, but it is Angela Rayner. She's dithering. She's got self-doubts. She's got her HMRC tax affairs investigation still ongoing. And Labour MPs are going off her a little bit in terms of a leadership contender. So Wes Streeting could do it if he went now, but has he got the nerve to move while the time is right?
I still think that Angie, I think any candidate on the left, and Berringham is the one that would win, bearing in mind that if you go back to 2020, and again, this idea that Keir Starmer, they sold himself for the next few years as Mr. sort of like almost Blairite type figure, although he said he is a socialist, and absolutely Tony Blair was not a socialist, which is why he kept getting re-elected, by the way. But when he ran for the Labour leadership in 2020, Keir Starmer ran very much on the left, if you look back at what he had to say.
Absolutely. He was playing to two different audiences, of course. When he stood for the Labour leadership, he was a raving lefty, and then when he went to the country, he was a moderate. Of course, we now get him in power and we don't actually know what he is because he doesn't seem to have a vision, which is part of the problem. He had no plan for power when he was elected. He sacked his first chief of staff for not giving him a plan for his first 100 days. Well, he had enough time to think about it. You could see the Conservatives were collapsing.
It's so weird. I've always wondered what Keir Starmer wanted to be Prime Minister for, other than he's went, I'm going to be a barrister and I'm going to be Director of Public Prosecutions, and then I think I'll be Prime Minister. I want to tick it off the list. Genuinely, off the top of my head, I could give you 20 clear policies that I would want to enact if I were Prime Minister, which I think would improve the country long term. I could list those for you right now. I don't think you could list anything other than something vague about the EU.
No, absolutely. And when you come into your programme every morning, you have a little plan. You thought about it overnight.
It doesn't show sometimes, David.
You keep coming in and saying, right, what are we going to talk about this morning? Oh, gosh, I haven't read the papers. I don't know. Well, there's an element of that about this government.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is totally what it is. Listen, so good to talk to you. Great to have you on. Columnist of The Sun, David Wooding. Jake Wallace-Simons, listening to all that, you were nodding quite a lot of that. What do you want to say?
Oh, no, he's absolutely right. I mean, Starmer, I think I was a bit unfair on Starmer earlier. I said that he had only one principle, which was himself, but he has got a few other principles. He refused to back down on the Chagos Islands giveaway. I mean, that's one thing he definitely believes in, come hail or high water. He's a great believer in international law, particularly when it's contrary to the national interest, and he really believes in rejoining the EU. Even now, amid all the blood and tears and trying to survive and fighting in the trenches, he's still trying to take us back into the EU.
I'd like to say, crucially, here's another thing. He doesn't believe in democracy.
He doesn't believe in democracy, as evidenced by the fact that he tried to cancel the elections that have now led to this position.
Not just the local elections, but for 3 years when he was Shadow Brexit Secretary under Jeremy Corbyn, he was quite happy to try and elect an anti-Semite. And yes, Jeremy Corbyn, feel free to sue me at any time.
Yeah. In fact,
for 3 years he tried to not put him in charge. But he wanted to try and stop enacting the biggest single democratic vote for anything ever in this country. I've always said, and I will say until the end of time, that is unforgivable. Now, just to get you up to date, the political editor of The Telegraph has posted on X, and I think has been backed up by Pat McFadden, the Work and Pensions Minister, who said that no one challenged the Prime Minister at this Cabinet meeting. What a bunch of lily-livered, spineless, creepy crawlies this bunch are. He says he understands that Starmer did not give his critics any chance to speak against him in this morning's meeting. He delivered a pre-prepared statement informing them he would not leave office and then moved the meeting on to discuss the war in Iran. Now, the fact that none of these cabinet ministers sitting in a room with him, not when they were on Zoom calls when they were during lockdown. Do you remember during lockdown they used to have the cabinet on Zoom and they would be kept on mute unless they were asked to speak? That's how little. I mean, the fact they agreed to do that tells you everything about them then. But the fact that you're sitting in a room and you don't go, sorry, Prime Minister, I realise what's going on in terms of the conflict in Iran is important, and I realise the economic fallout is important, but we also need to talk about having strong leadership, and we don't believe you could provide that. And I know that I'm not alone around this table, and I believe that you should go. If you haven't got the guts to do that, if you can't go, excuse me, Prime Minister, I mean, seriously, are any of these people up to the job?
Well, no. I think if we take a step back, though, it's quite clear that what the country needs is a change of government from Labour to a government of the right. I mean, everybody, I think, with any sense in the country can see that. And it's funny because Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage have both been laying into Keir Starmer, as you'd expect. Yeah. But if I was them, I would be saying, carry on, mate.
They're
Keep
being
going.
relatively quiet. You know, when your enemy's making a mistake,
exactly,
just don't get
you want
involved.
him to stay there. The most unpopular Prime Minister in history, I think, leading the Labour Party to a dismal failure with challenges from the Greens, challenges to reform, no ideas at all. Keep going, mate, because we want the country to be renewed by a government that's actually going to do the job properly.
Yeah, I'm in two minds on this one, but we'll talk about that. Plenty more time on the show. Coming up, I do want to get to your messages. Sadly, we can't get your calls on air because our phone lines are still down. Just checking, did someone pay the bill? Just checking, did someone pay the bill for the phone line? Can we just double check that? But 0344 499 1000 would be the number to call. I mean, keep on trying on the off chance. But we can get your messages from text. So do text the word talk in your message to 87222. We'll get those messages on air. You can send us a message on X at talkTV. About 9:30, 9:40, put out a question from the show at talkTV, and I retweeted it at JuliaHB1. And you can reply to that, and we'll get those messages on air if we can. But do keep persevering on that, because we absolutely want to hear your views on this. I know you must be very frustrated we're not getting to get you on air. We were hoping in the next half hour to talk to Robert Jenrick for reform, but sadly he's too busy all of a sudden to talk to us. We'll be having words about that, young Mr. Jenrick, at some point, but lots more top guests coming instead of him. But if you do suddenly find time in your busy schedule, Mr. Jenrick, to talk to the people on this station and our audience, I'm sure they'd be very, very grateful. And I'm sure you know the number to call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Fast approaching 11:27. I've got good news for you. Our phone lines are not back up. However, I've got an alternative number for you to call. And exactly the same rules. The calls are charged at the national rate. This phone number is, take it down, get your pens and papers handy, 0207 645 3619. That's 0207 645 3619. 3619. Now, actually, do you think, can we get that number on the screen while we are talking, so at least people on the YouTube page can have a look at that? But 0207 645 3619, charged at the national rate, and you call that number, we will be able to get you on air. So fingers crossed that will be working at least. And thank you very much for staying with us. But 0207 645 3619 is the number to get in touch. Jake Wallace-Simons, you don't need to do that. You're still here. There are other things I want to talk about today, amazingly. One of the stories I wanted to talk about, we talked about, Iran an awful lot. We don't seem, frankly, to be seeing anything moving there. But we have got a new report out on October the 7th. Now, you've spoken about this a great deal and done an awful lot of reporting on it. But there's a report out today by a sort of special commission set up by sort of an Israeli, independent Israeli non-governmental organisation. I can immediately hear the pro-Palestinian are going, oh, well, in that case, it's all lies. And they put out a huge publication. It's got a huge coverage in the Mail and other newspapers today of what they found about what happened on October the 7th. And it details the most extraordinary brutality, a lot of which has been denied by, let's face it, they call themselves anti-Israeli. They're not. A lot of them are just plain old anti-Semites who've defended Hamas's freedom fighters fighting a resistance against this horrible, evil oppressor, the genocidal, baby-killing, murderous Israeli army. But what this details is what happened on October the 7th to men, women and children, at the Nova Festival, in the kibbutz, all along the border, when quite a few thousand Hamas fighters and just Gaza local people crossed through the fences and started their trail of devastation. Now, we know about 1,200 people dead, 250 taken hostage. But what this details is stuff that we've discussed many times, but has been denied again and again and again by so many people, was the horrific brutality, the torture, the rape, the sadism that there is very clear evidence from, and crucially, evidence taken by Hamas themselves, put on their own Telegram channels themselves, which is still being denied by many who support them.
Yeah, not just that, but necrophilia, mutilation. If you read the report, it's very difficult to read.
It's difficult to give too much detail, but yeah.
And this is something that people have never wanted to believe, even though the evidence was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's been the one thing that people with sympathies for the Palestinians have been unable to acknowledge, even though it's completely factual.
Well, Owen Jones.
Owen Jones going
watched
to
that 45-minute screening.
No evidence
of rape.
And it's funny because these people, they're behaving. They would never behave that way towards any other woman suffering any kind of sexual abuse, even the most minor. These are people who, talk about microaggressions. A hand on a leg is the worst thing in the world, but murder, rape, sexual abuse, and necrophilia is somehow okay. It feels like, as Howard Jacobson said, it feels like murder and rape and mutilation is not small enough to be a worry.
No, exactly. And again, you said your hand on them. As someone who apparently managed to lose a cabinet minister's job, not my choice, from him having a hand on my knee many years ago. Absolutely absurd. And the whole Me Too movement, and that same crowd, believe all women, didn't believe a single Israeli woman who's complaining about this. But again, you don't need to believe anything the Israelis say. You just simply need to look at the evidence, and the evidence is very clear. So clear. Filmed by Hamas themselves. They had body cams. They came over with, this is extraordinary, they came over with little phrases on their phones when they were caught, when they were killed, or when they were captured by the IDF and others. They had phrases like "spread your legs," "take your underwear off." They had them in Hebrew so that they could give instructions to the women. And the horrific rape, gang rape, women being mutilated, breasts cut off, mutilated while being gang raped, being raped after they were dead. As you say, just absolutely horrific acts still being denied, and these people are still being celebrated as resistance fighters by many on the left.
Yeah,
it blows my mind.
It took UN Women, I think, 6 weeks to offer any condemnation of the sexual abuse. The UN General Assembly still hasn't unequivocally condemned October the 7th without equivocation.
Yeah.
And, I remember Shari Mendes, that IDF volunteer whose job it was to prepare these women's bodies for burial. She gave a number of interviews at the UN and to the media a few months ago, and they were just the most searing interviews you can imagine.
And it's stuff you want to turn the page on. But I thought we should kind of, that's something we would have spent a lot of time on today if we weren't dealing with this ridiculous shenanigans of our government. I'm delighted to say, on a happier note, that phone line is now, well, not the regular phone line, but the phone line I've given you is working. 0207 645 361 now. And I can tell that because I can see all the numbers flashing up on the board. Let's go to a couple of those calls right now. Paul is on the line in Cardiff. Paul, thank you for coming through on that new number just for today. Paul, what do you make of what's happening today? Do you think Keir Starmer's going to survive like he reckons he is?
Well, it seems like when they had the cabinet meeting, it was like a closed shop before they started.
Yeah.
If he wants the best for the country, he should resign.
Do you think it's simple as that? What do you make of the cabinet not speaking up? We're told he didn't give them a chance to speak, but
well,
nothing. They weren't. I mean, they weren't being held down with balls in their mouths, were they? They could have spoke.
They're scared stiff of losing their jobs, but whoever comes in, they'll be out anyway. You
reckon?
Oh yeah. And if Andy Burnham can get in, they definitely will be gone.
Yeah. I mean, you think there's no doubt. Do you think Andy Burnham will be able to get him?
Well, I mean, that's terrible that he stopped him from applying as an MP.
But wait, hold on a minute. But he knew the rules. He stood to be Manchester Mayor. He said he would serve a 5-year term. He chose to leave Parliament himself.
Yeah,
and the rules require you to get permission from the NEC, and he would have, and that would have meant there'd have to be an election across the, for the Manchester Mayor as well, which they may well have lost. I've got to be honest with you. I know that the reason they did it was tactically, but it's perfectly justifiable as well.
But he's had good results as the Mayor of Manchester, hasn't he?
Would you vote Labour if he was the Prime
I
Minister?
voted Reform this year.
What would you vote Labour if it was?
Oh no!
Andy Burnham?
No.
Oh no, I love that. No.
No.
You just think he'd be better than Starmer?
Oh gosh, anybody would be. You've got to have primary school.
Angela Rayner? Angela Rayner better than Starmer?
She still haven't paid a tax.
Well, exactly. There we are. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Let's go to Phil, who's in Hertfordshire. Hello, Phil.
Good morning, Julia. Good morning.
Good morning. What do you want to say?
Yeah, well, it's just about Keir Starmer refusing to talk to his cabinet. I think that just actually highlights exactly what the bloke's like.
Yeah.
It's so self-centered and selfish. End of. And it just really highlights what he thinks of us, the people. It just amplifies everything about him. If he won't even listen to his own cabinet, what chance do we have?
But also, there's an element where, if he really believes in himself, he would allow the cabinet to say what they want to say, and then he'd give good arguments back about why they were wrong and why he should stay.
But then is that a sign of weakness? I think it is.
I think everything he does is a sign of weakness. But hold on a minute. He's going to nationalise British Steel, mate. That's going to solve everything.
Oh, happy days. We'll get the champagne out for that one as well then. But, it really... And as for the Cabinet not speaking up against him, that shows just how weak they are as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much for calling, Phil. So I told you those phone lines work. 0207 645 3619 is the number to call. Going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Lord Ross Kemsell, who's a Conservative peer, to find out what he makes of the shenanigans going on in the Labour Party this week. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. Well, we're about an hour out of the cabinet meeting breaking up. We've got a statement from what the Prime Minister had said even in the middle of the cabinet meeting, but it's now been made very, very clear. The Prime Minister basically opened the meeting, shut down any conversation about whether or not he should leave and resign or give a timetable for when he would go, and the cabinet members did not raise a peep about it. What does that tell you about the potential runners and riders? Well, let's talk about this with Lord Kempson now. Ross Kempson is a Conservative peer. He's also publisher of Guido Fawkes and, as many of our regulars will know, formerly of this parish as our long time ago political editor. Very good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating that, a lot of people were expecting the cabinet to follow on from the 80-odd backbenchers, bag carriers, the PPSs, and indeed even one minister now, and tell the Prime Minister it's time to go. Not a peep from any of them. I've just been given a list of the 6 cabinet members who actually said they believe that Keir Starmer should resign. We understand. Those are the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband, Health Secretary Wes Streeting, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, Defence Secretary John Healey, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy. Everybody else apparently are being loyal. I'd look down that list and I'd basically say, those are people, Lord Hermer, Steve Reid, David Lammy, Darren Jones, Peter Kyle, Pat McFadden, Liz Kendall, who basically rely on the Prime Minister for a job and unlikely to get one otherwise. What do you make of what's happening?
I think the list of supporters of Keir Starmer who you read out is just his invite list for a dinner party. They're people who are personal friends.
What an awful dinner party.
Can you imagine? It would be like that game where you have to list the worst ever dinner party that you can't imagine going to. I mean, those are the only people who are with Keir Starmer now. They're his lifelong political career allies who owe their entire careers, who owe their promotions to him. Everybody else has abandoned ship, and not a day too soon, because whilst those cabinet ministers sit around the cabinet table as secretaries of state and keep silence, say nothing on behalf of their constituents, say nothing on behalf of the country, which is angry with Keir Starmer and wants him gone, what is actually happening in this country? There are 7.3 million people on the NHS elective waiting list. Yeah. When is the last time you heard a Labour minister mention that? 2.3 million of them have been waiting more than 18 weeks for treatment. The Crown Court backlog is now at 80,000 cases. Yeah. The rate of prosecutions for serious and violent and sexual offences is falling under Labour. And the worst possible outcome for Keir Starmer, who ran on a manifesto which had change branded all over it, is that the only changes I can see he has made during his premiership is to release 38,000 prisoners onto streets from jails unnecessarily, and to let in 72,000 small boat migrants, after saying that he would make efforts to control immigration and to restore security to the UK's borders. Labour has done it again. Every single Labour Prime Minister who comes into office leaves borrowing higher. It's now the case that £305 million a day is being spent in the UK just to service the cost of borrowing and debt interest. Labour has delivered exactly what it delivers every single time. Higher borrowing, higher taxes, lower growth. Labour made growth the centrepiece of their general election campaign. It's only 2 years ago that we were being told every single day by every Labour candidate that their number one priority was growing the economy. And what happened in 2025? We had 1.4% GDP growth in this country. We're lagging behind the Eurozone in GDP per capita. We're being crushed economically by our competitors. It's time for Keir Starmer just to admit that his project has not worked. And now even 83 of his own parliamentary colleagues say the same, and that number is only going to rise.
The only thing I would query with you on that, and I can't imagine my audience nodding away at every word, is the idea that Keir Starmer had a project.
Yeah, and I don't really think he had a project.
You were being nice.
I don't think he's a politician. And I think you've been saying that, Julia, this morning on the calls. People can feel that. When they listen to Keir Starmer, they don't sense that he's somebody with any vision of what to deliver for the country. And we can tell that because, his policy platform has been a total disaster, and he really only has himself to blame. Yep. He spent millions and millions of pounds and huge amounts of taxpayers' time on the wretched Chagos deal, which he's now had to drop and U-turn. He tried to fiddle around with winter fuel payments for pensioners. He had to U-turn on that. He delivered the family farm tax, which has, absolutely whacked farmers in this country. It's driven farmers to suicide, and then he had to step back from that. He cancelled local elections and put them back on again when he's just been crushed. He said he wasn't going to allow there to be an inquiry into grooming gangs, and then he had to U-turn on that because he was forced to. He tried to change the two-child benefit cap. Every single policy instrument that he's touched has gone wrong. And I can't think of a modern prime minister like that. I know that we've had prime ministers who've been a great disappointment, including from my own party, the Conservative Party. But I can't think of a prime minister who every single policy that they've driven from Downing Street has collapsed and has done so in the context of a massive Labour majority.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, it's the anti-Midas touch. And, basically everything he touches completely turns to dust rather than gold. But this is the thing. I think a lot of people did think that, OK, look, we might not vote Labour, we're not being supported Labour, but at the very least we're going to get someone who's just quietly competent and managerial, and we can live with that for a bit after the chaos we've had in the last few years. And we've had the exact opposite. The chaos, has continued. What happens next? Because I don't know any Westminster watchers, and I try not to be in the Westminster bubble.
Yeah,
I find my analysis and predictions are far more accurate not being in the Westminster bubble than sticking inside it and just basically saying, I'm hearing from everybody. Well, yeah, because you're all talking to each other. Of course, you're all hearing from everybody. That I don't see how he survives. I mean, my view is he doesn't really, in terms of not giving out a timetable for departure. I'm not sure he makes it through the week. I'd be surprised if he gets through the day. They might be a bit chicken, Wes Streeting and others before, until after the King's speech. But I think the moment has come. And even if he does stagger on this week, next week, we all know he's toast. We all know at some point he's going to be going. What happens after that? What are the best and worst options in your view?
Well, the best option is a general election, in my view.
We're not going to get a general election.
Labour seem to be abdicating the duty to govern. The case this morning is that Wes Streeting should have come out after that cabinet meeting if he wants to be Prime Minister. He knows that around the table there's no confidence in Keir Starmer amongst his own cabinet, but they're all too weak to say anything, except a handful of them who've announced overnight that they don't support him. Come on, Labour, step up and govern if you think you can lead the country and deliver something better. But I don't feel that that's happening from any of the leadership rivals. If any of those people really wanted to deliver change and to be Prime Minister, they should be out there now, setting their stall out. And the same is true, exactly as you said about Keir Starmer. OK, we had his speech yesterday, which was just more of the same. His premiership is in crisis. He has not delivered at all since, the end of last week when this really started percolating in Westminster. Where is his agenda? Where is his...
Well, we're going to nationalise British Steel and pretend we're not going back into the EU, but actually go back in. I think you'll find that is exactly what his agenda is. Can I ask you, because you're very good on these things, constitutionally, a lot of people are asking on social media, is there a possibility of a general election? What if this Prime Minister says, and we don't have the Fixed Term Parliaments Act anymore. He can just call an election any time. He goes to the King and he says, I want to call an election, and I mean, technically, the King can say no and say, well, your party can still form a government, but it is very likely that the King would say yes. Can he go and do that, just to sort of call the bluff of everybody? Would he do that?
I think, having been in the bunker with Prime Ministers...
Just so people know, you were working for Boris Johnson when things were very difficult.
Yeah, and look, one of the only options left in Keir Starmer's tool shed as the son of a toolmaker is to pull the general election lever. I mean, I think it's unlikely. Right now. I agree with you.
He might lose his own seat.
Yeah, absolutely, and so will many of his colleagues, because a large percentage of the Parliamentary Labour Party have a majority of less than 5,000. So, on the results from last week and on current polling, a lot of them would be wiped out, and they're incentivised, obviously, to try to keep their jobs as MPs. They want their salary of more than £90,000. They want their expenses. Of course, it's not in their interest to vote for an election, but that's the wrong question in politics. The question is what's in the interests of the country, and I'm afraid if Labour find it implausible to govern, which it seems that they do. They've collapsed in record time. The last time round they had a spell in government, it was more than a decade before we got to this point, well over. And it's 2 years. So Labour's not prepared or ready to govern. And it doesn't seem to me, any of these characters like Andy Burnham, who may or may not re-enter Parliament, to take responsibility and say, this needs to be fixed. Because while this is going on, the gilt market is tanking. There's going to be real uncertainty in the economy, and people can't see a way forward to address any of the actual important questions. So, if Labour don't want to govern, then they should just call a general election and leave. Really interesting to talk to you. Ross Kempsall, Lord Kempsall, Conservative peer, also the publisher Guido Fawkes. So a lot of the news. So people say gossip. A lot of the news comes out very quickly. Thank you very much for that. Just to bring some breaking news, Andy Burnham, King over the water, King up north, or whatever you're calling him this week, he's been spotted at Euston Station this morning after arriving on a train to London on a, many are saying, it's a make or break day for Keir Starmer, but he is in town. Jake Wallace-Simons, very interesting to know that he felt that it was a good day to pop to London. Good day for a day out. Yeah, I mean, as Ross was just talking, I was casting my mind back retrospectively over Starmer's premiership and thinking about all the slogans he's given us. And I jotted down a few: smash the gangs, country first, party second, national renewal, mission-driven government, politics of service, turn the page, working people deserve better, unburdened by doctrine, stability with change, tread lightly on your lives and end the chaos. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. It's just, no sniggering at the front or back. And, did he believe it at the time? I genuinely don't think he believes anything he says, but there we are. 11:49 is the time. I want to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. We've got a phone line, not the regular one. We've got an A phone line working. 0207 645 3619. It's 0207 645 3619. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to political editor of the New World, James Bald, find out what he makes of it. I'll give you the number again. If you want to get a pen and paper handy, I'll give you that number again. 0207 645 3619. Can't wait to hear your thoughts as well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. You'll never guess what. Now we've got that other number. Our old number's now working. Of course it is. Someone's paid the bill and now it's working. 0344 499 1000 is, I bet you any, that's what it was. 0344 499 1000 is a number to call to get in touch. We will take more of your calls in the next hour. Thank you very much for bearing with us. We've got calls on the board ready for the next half hour as well. But right now, let's talk to another guest. James Ball, he's political editor of the New World, used to be the New European. And I imagine, James, you were terribly excited what the Prime Minister had to say in his massive, big and terribly successful and important speech yesterday, when he basically said that his solutions were nationalising British steel and basically going back into the EU without really officially doing so. So are you a bit disappointed by what's going on today?
I don't know what you mean. I'm sure we're going to have 10 more glorious years of Keir Starmer, are we not?
Well, apparently.
No, I mean, it was a classic Starmer speech in that it will have really enraged anyone who voted for Brexit because it sounded very sort of pro-EU, pro-nationalisation. And it did absolutely nothing for people like me who actually want closer relations with the EU. Because I feel like we've had this conversation before, Julia.
I feel we have, James.
Keir Starmer often says he wants this closer relationship with Europe, Britain at the heart of Europe, and then he doesn't actually do it. He says it, it's vibes, and then there's no single market in there, there's no customs union in there.
Well, no, because
the same red lines are there.
I know that Keir Starmer doesn't feel strongly about democratic mandates because, of course, he was happy to override that when he was Shadow Brexit Secretary under Jeremy Corbyn, when he campaigned for their Labour manifesto. One of the reasons why they lost in 2019 was to basically ignore the results of the first referendum in 2016 and have a second one to just check if we were really sure, because apparently we're all a bit thick and bigoted and didn't know what we were voting for in 2016. So I'm not surprised, actually, that he would consider basically dumping his pledge that he wouldn't return to via the single union or the customs union. But that would be a deal breaker for most voters, would that not be?
Well, I think if you're going to make the speech, you need to do the action. And I think this is his problem of his whole premiership in a nutshell. He has annoyed you and made you sort of attack his democratic legitimacy while actually doing nothing for the pro-EU side. We look at that and we go, well, you're not going to do any of this. You're just saying it, and you've said it 4 times before. Are
there other leadership contenders, given where we are right now? The Cabinet has a meeting. We're expecting Cabinet ministers to certainly say to the Prime Minister's face, as clearly he was expecting, Prime Minister, you need to give us a timetable for departure. This doesn't work anymore. He shut it down. They didn't push back. Andy Burnham's in town. Wes Streeting, stony face, doesn't speak to anyone. Who knows what's going to happen by the end of the day? Who knows, what's going to happen before the King's speech around this time tomorrow? But do you think that any of the other possible contenders would do anything different from the Prime Minister?
I mean, Euston's in Keir Starmer's constituency, delightfully. So just a nice little nugget on that.
He in the house.
a lot of the contenders have been quite careful not to actually say anything much on policy, so they can try and appeal to as many Labour members as possible. And I suspect they will carry on doing it. I don't think they'll make Europe a big part of a leadership contest if they do that. The membership is very, very pro-EU, but, the voting base is a bit different. They'll be a bit careful. It's not what would deliver results in the 2 to 3 years a government would have either.
But isn't this the difficulty? And this is a difficulty that every person who runs for the Labour leadership has. And we saw this in terms of the pitch that Keir Starmer gave in 2020 to win the leadership, and what the pitch he gave to the British people in 2024 at the general election, which is that you have to go to the left to win the Labour leadership, and then you have to go further to the centre ground to actually win over the general public, because they're not as far left as the Labour Party membership, who are completely out there on the left. But the reality is you can't please both sides at the same time.
You don't have to at the moment, though. Reform take a lot more votes off the Conservatives than they do off Labour. They're winning in Labour areas, but they're not actually taking most of their votes from Labour. If Labour could get a lot of the Green votes back and the right stays split between Reform and the Tories, Labour could easily get a majority again.
Well, all you need to do is
I
just
think
to
a lot
get
of
together with some anti-Semitic. I mean, if Labour just shimmies up with some anti-Semitic Islamists, then they'd do much better, wouldn't they? Or they've already done that.
I'd say we've got some anti-Semitism problems right across politics at the moment, and it's incredibly depressing.
I think it's very clear the two parties it's mostly in.
I don't think that's
Really?
that clear at all. I
I'm
think we have
pretty sure
some
it's very
fairly
clear.
serious anti-Semites within Reform candidates. We have some within Greens. I think Labour's cleaned itself up to a great extent on this front. I think let's not make it party political. It's a foul form of racism, and it exists on the left and the right, and neither is doing enough to tackle it.
It has been on the extreme right always, but it has blown up on the left, and it happened under the Labour Party. And I'm afraid I don't think many of our Jewish fellow citizens think that Keir Starmer did enough to tackle that in his own party. And, but there we are. What do you think, just finally, very briefly, James, what do you think is going to happen in the next few days, weeks, months? Is Keir Starmer going to stay?
I think if Starmer forces a contest, that rules Burnham out. And I think that might be why he would do it. Andy Burnham needs Keir Starmer to cooperate for him to have a shot at the leadership. And I'm not sure he's ever worked out why Keir would want to do that. And so I think if Starmer picks a fight, Labour's got to have to pick a new leader from its 400 MPs. And I think they'd find a new soft left person to rally around. I think Wes might start the challenge because he's not got many other options. I don't think he'll wear the crown.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate that. Political Editor, New World. Jake Wallace-Simon's listening to that. Interesting analysis.
Well, I mean, the stuff about anti-Semitism being equally on the right and the left is patently a load of rubbish. I mean, it's very much on the right in America, but in Britain, I mean, yes, you've got a few nasty candidates in the Reform Party. They're trying to professionalise and it's taking time, but it's overwhelmingly the case. Yeah. I mean, in my view, absurd, the Greens are an anti-Semitic party. It's one of their main selling points to their supporters. Labour is much better, as he rightly said, than it was under Corbyn, but still a long way to go.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot more to talk about there, because very helpfully, I'm now trying to not sneeze while I'm just going up to the top of the hour, but we are approaching the top of the hour. Up next, after the news, we are going to be hearing from a Labour MP for North Durham. He is Luke Akehurst, who is, I am told, certainly was when we booked him, still sympathetic and loyal to the Prime Minister. Will he still be? Who knows? Things are moving very, very fast. But he obviously will, if that is the case, he will be certainly supportive of the fact the Prime Minister shut down all debate and conversation about him leaving, resigning, setting out a timetable for his departure at Cabinet or at any point today. The Cabinet's completely split, the country's split, the party's split. What's going to happen? We'll try to get to the bottom of that. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very, very good afternoon to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and the time is 2 minutes past midday. Well, we're a good hour and a half out of the cabinet meeting this morning. Make or break meeting for the Prime Minister after his make or break speech after make or break local elections last week. We keep having make or break moments for it, but he ain't going. He is not moving. Very, very clear. He started that cabinet meeting this morning and basically said to cabinet ministers, and we know at least 6 of those have told him he needs to go. He said to them, you know, I'm not going. You have not reached the threshold for there to be a leadership challenge, which is 81 MPs who actually are challenging the Prime Minister with one particular candidate. No candidate has put themselves forward so far, and I'm going to carry on doing the job. The last 48 hours, he told the Cabinet, have been destabilising for government, and that has a real economic cost for our country and for families. And that is certainly the case because the bond markets, as we've seen the yield on those bonds, 3 years, 5 years and 10-year bonds, absolutely go skyrocketing up. And that is money that you and I are putting in our taxes, going into the Treasury and going straight out in interest on debt. It's not coming back into our pockets for us to spend it on what we choose. It's certainly not going into public services. It's not paying for defence. It's not paying a single nurse's salary. It's paying for those bond yields. But there we are. That's where we are today. But would things get better or worse if all of the speculation about the future of the Prime Minister ended? Well, it could just end if he decided that he was already going. We know that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, Ed Miliband, the Net Zero Secretary, Wes Streeting, Health Secretary, Yvette Cooper, Foreign Secretary, John Healey, Defence Secretary, Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, all believe that Keir Starmer should resign. Loyalists, though, the likes of Lord Herman, the Attorney General, Steve Reid, David Lammy, Darren Jones, Peter Carr, Pat McFadden, Liz Kendall, are standing firm beside the Prime Minister. However, we know some 81 Labour MPs are not. That included some PPSs, those are the bag-carrying junior aides to Prime Minister, the first rung of the ministerial ladder, and indeed one minister who chose to step down, Miata Fahnbulleh, who chose, well, the very first minister to go. What will happen in the rest of the day? Well, we know that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, left very stony-faced from that cabinet meeting, did not speak to reporters, as many other ministers did. And we also know that, quite by coincidence, despite being the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham is in town today. Andy Burnham arrived at Euston Station by train this morning. What is going on there? Well, we shall maybe find out over the coming hours, over the coming days. Who knows? Joining me today, I'm delighted to say, is journalist and author Jake Wallace-Simons, giving you tuppence worth on all of this. Delighted to say right now we're joined by a Labour MP. He's the MP for North Durham, Luke Akehurst, who has been loyal to the Prime Minister. And Luke, great to have you on the show. You were certainly loyal to the Prime Minister when you were booked. Just want to double check. Has that stance changed?
And will be going forward. I'm a creature of habit. I'm boring and predictable, and I believe in being loyal to Labour Prime Ministers who have secured landslide majorities and trying to make sure that they get re-elected in 2 years' time or 3 years' time.
Just want to clarify, you think that this Prime Minister, despite where he is in the polls, despite his negative personal rating, despite being the most hated man on the doorstep, despite MPs and councillors again and again reporting that he was the issue that really did it for Labour councillors at this last local elections and in the Senate in Wales and in Scotland, that he can turn it all around, can deliver for the British people and keep you all in a job come 2029. Do you actually believe that?
Well, for a start off, that's a long way off. That's 2 or 3 years. Yeah, 3 years ago, we were 20% ahead in the opinion polls. Things can change. Yeah. Lots of the things we've already done in government haven't actually hit people's pockets yet. Or hit their communities. For instance, my constituency benefits from 20 million of Pride in Place spending on local regeneration, but that doesn't actually, nothing actually starts being done with that until May next year. I think that 2.5 years is a long time to expose the problems with Zach Polanski and with Nigel Farage. And I think that the difficult stuff that the government is dealing with wouldn't suddenly change if there was a different Prime Minister. There's this kind of escapist fantasy. If only we could change the person in number 10, we'd suddenly be incredibly popular. Well, we might have some kind of short honeymoon. For Gordon Brown, that lasted about 3 months when he got rid of Tony Blair, and then you'd have to call another general election. And I don't, if you wanted to capitalise on that, I don't think 411 of us would be coming back. But it's likely that all of the same economic problems and tough spending decisions, like how are we going to fund the defence investment plan, that's on the desk for any Labour Prime Minister. So the idea that someone could suddenly wave a magic wand and it all goes away and everyone's happy, I think is for the birds.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that analysis, and this is part of the issue. Is it a personnel issue, or is it a kind of a reality issue? And that's the thing. And I've said that even before Labour got elected. It's the same set of problems, but there's no doubt at all. This is a Prime Minister who has made it very clear he is not willing, not able to grasp those problems. When you talk about there are lots of things that the government has done that people haven't felt the benefits of, but there's also a lot of things that the government is perhaps even not in charge of, but has implications in. And for instance, things like the impact from the Iran conflict, which all of the international bodies have said we are uniquely being hardest hit by because of our insane net zero policies and our lack of investment in North Sea, that actually there's a massive big financial hit coming down the railway track, and it's going to hit, and it's going to be negative, not positive in people's pockets.
And do you think that any of the potential alternative leaders, particularly if they ones that involved a shift to the left in the Labour Party stance, would be proposing a policy agenda that would make those kind of issues
go away,
disappear?
No.
I mean, I suspect they would actually move further from where my constituents are on most of the big issues. It's like if I go out on in North Durham on the doorstep, and we actually lost all our councillors except 2 last year. That is in May 25, not May 26, and those people are yes, they don't like Keir Starmer, but they're shouting at me about issues like immigration. Is the correct reaction to that for the Labour Party to swerve off to the left and come up with a bunch of stuff that was never in our manifesto? I don't think so. I think that's going to make people more angry, not less angry.
I agree with you on that, but by the way,
we need to address their core concerns about migration and cost of living, and in regions outside of London about long-term reindustrialisation. And I think Keir Starmer is more likely to do that than any of the other people that are being talked about.
I mean, Keir Starmer is no stranger to introducing random things that are not in the manifesto, or indeed not sticking with his manifesto commitments about, raising taxes on working people. I mean, the national insurance, pretty sure, is a tax on working people that's been paid by the employer or the employee. Look, I agree with you. Immigration, cost of living, you say reindustrialisation. That ain't happening while we've got sky-high energy prices thanks to net zero, so that's for the birds. But
well, it needs to happen because that's one. Where are we going to build the equipment for the defence investment plan? If it's we're going to have to spend billions on rearming the country. I'd rather like that money to be spent.
The Prime Minister has not promised any money for the defence investment.
It's one of the things I've pushed him on to his face about, and I will continue to push on, because I'd like that money to be spent at the BAE factory in Washington, Tyne and Wear, or the Pearson Engineering factory on the banks of the Tyne in Newcastle, because it's creating really high quality jobs for my constituents.
All right, and that's what you should be doing as a local MP, and that would benefit us all, by the way. We need to have that money spent. But here's the thing, you're giving a staunch defence of the Prime Minister. But it sounds to me like you've got a little bit more balls, frankly, than a lot of the Cabinet, who, when the Prime Minister said, right, we're not talking about this today, I'm not leaving unless you put up 81 people who are going to back one of you, I'm not going to discuss this, basically. And they all sat there and went, okay,
because they haven't got 81 people. It's all smoke and mirrors. They're hoping to bundle him out the door just by kind of pressure and a drip of people calling him to go. If they had 81, they would have put 81 up on the day that Anna Sarwar stood down, or they would get 81 signatures in now. That's how I'm on the party's National Executive Committee. I have some expertise in how the rule book works. If they want a leadership election, they can have one now with 81 MPs all nominating a single person. But the problem is, for most of these people, they're more scared of the other person that might get get in, then they, whatever problems they got with the Prime Minister, if you're a Wes Streeting supporter, you really don't want Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner. If you're someone from the soft left of the party, you really don't want Wes. So actually, they're going to end up kind of cancelling each other out, and it's not going to happen. All that this speculation is doing is damaging the Labour Party, actually damaging the public finances because of the impact on the bond market. So if any colleagues are listening to this, I just hope, stop it. Get on with your job of being an MP or being a minister or whatever. Come in tomorrow, listen to the King's speech, hear what legislation we're putting forward, cheer on the Labour team, because this is just nonsense. It's just destabilising nonsense, and it needs to stop.
Is it the people, the runners and riders, and the speculation, are they destabilising the Prime Minister and this government, or is the Prime Minister, through his own actions and inactions and his inability to communicate? She said, to connect with the people. Is it he who is destabilising his?
It's difficult for him to do anything when he's constantly having to answer questions about this. And he needs to be given the space.
He didn't take questions from the cabinet on this morning. He often doesn't take questions. He's got 400 MPs. He can do anything he wants, and he's not getting anything done. Why are you sticking by him so much?
It is not true that he's not getting anything done. I've voted through dozens and dozens of pieces of legislation, some of which is stuff that people even on the left of the Labour Party
anything that's going to change people's lives, anything that's going to deliver real growth, anything that's going to put the public finances in a better place, anything that's going to make us stronger and safer.
Sure. Every single person that is an employee benefits from the Workers' Rights Act. That's stuff that our trade union friends have been asking for. I said an employee.
Yeah, I know,
every single person that rents a house benefits from the Renters' Rights Act.
If they can't rent a flat because the landlords all sell up and they don't rent flats out anymore.
All of the people with more than 2 children that were hit by the benefit cap that are being lifted out of child poverty.
The ones who don't work full time and could work full time and not actually can't afford.
It includes people that are on universal credit. In work.
Trust me, I've done the stats. I've looked at it all. So most people benefiting from that do not have 2 working parents.
Sure, but this is
why?
Luke, you're saying
Luke,
Labour's done nothing,
let me ask
and
you,
I'm saying
Luke,
it's done a lot of Labour things which you don't agree with because you don't support the Labour Party. But that's fine.
You are obsessed with getting all these children out of poverty. These children are in poverty because the parents don't work. Why should my audience go to work? 2 parents going to work? No, they're not. The stats are publicly available.
Okay, we're not going to agree on this. You can't accuse the government of not doing anything when it's actually
You listed one of the achievements of this government as giving these people this extra money. The vast majority of even Labour voters don't want this cap lifted.
Okay, so that isn't an example of the government not doing something. It's an example of the government doing something you disagree with, which is absolutely fine. But the premise of your question was that Keir Starmer has done nothing in government, and he's done lots of things.
I said done something to actually improve the lot of this country, and that would include things like tackling the ballooning welfare bill.
I think the things he's done have improved this country and improved the lives of lots of my constituents, and we've got 2.5 years to do so much more that they come back and vote Labour again.
Would they not have their life improved better if we actually saw growth, if we had lower energy bills that didn't have to be subsidised, if employers could afford to employ young people, etc., etc.?
We were getting some very good growth figures immediately before the conflict in Iran.
You had some not completely awful growth figures. That's the best you can say. It was still mostly flatlining.
No, I don't accept that. I think the figures were heading in the right direction, and Rachel Reeves's economic policies were vindicated.
Sorry. Oh, come on. You were doing so well until that point, Luke. You were being really convincing until that point. Even you don't believe that.
No, I do. I
tell you what, your constituents don't, mate.
We'll test that in 2.5 years' time.
Do you think you're going to pass that test? You're talking a good game. You're better than most cabinet ministers. They should have you in the cabinet. You're the only person who could talk sense into a lot of this lot. But at the end of the day, if Keir Starmer's still there,
I'll cite you as a referee on my job application.
I'm sure that would help you. Just finally, of the runners and riders, if they do get their act together, if they do, you say they don't, but if they did have the 81 MPs who would support them to mount a challenge, which is the one you fear the most, as in could actually challenge the Prime Minister, and the one you fear the most if they actually got the job?
Well, I think the Prime Minister could see off any of them. I would support him in a contest. I actually worry a great deal about Andy Burnham's agenda, because Andy Burnham is capable of being a middle of the Labour Party, just kind of, I love the NHS and I want to do the right thing. Nice guy from Manchester, but he's advised by people like Neil Lawson and Clive Lewis that have a very odd stance towards wanting cooperation with the Greens, who I think should be persona non grata in British politics because of the anti-Semitism cloud around them, because they've actually recruited all of the most deranged people that we threw out of the Labour Party at the end of the Corbyn years.
Absolutely. Really great to have you on. You did a better job defending the Prime Minister than Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of the Cabinet Office, did defending the Prime Minister today. Labour MP for North Durham, Luke Akehurst, hope you'll come back on a show again. Appreciate your time. Jake Wallace-Simons listening to that. I mean, he put up that was a good defence. That was a passionate defence. I wish the Prime Minister was as passionate about his job as Luke is.
Well, I mean, passionate is not a word that anyone's ever used about Keir Starmer, I don't think, apart from at the moment in terms of trying to secure his survival. But I've got to say, I wasn't quite as convinced by Luke as you. For me, he seemed to illustrate why Labour can never be the answer to the problems that we're facing, because his main argument was that anybody who comes in after Keir Starmer is going to face the same problems and be unable to solve them in the same way. Yeah. And the reason why they can't solve them is because they're blind to the solutions that the country is crying out for. And the example that he gave, the Defence Investment Plan, came out last year, 10-year investment plan. The Prime Minister of the government has delayed for a year of those 10 years, not putting up the cash to secure our borders, to secure our country and our defence. And the solution to that is to cut welfare and use the money to pay for our defence. And Labour will never come up with that blindingly obvious solution. No. And that's why we're toast under Labour.
It's really that simple, isn't it? Don't forget, our phone lines are now back up. 0344 499 1000. Lots of calls on the board. I'm going to do my best to get to as many of them as possible after we take a quick break, and then we talk to the former director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, Paul Johnson, about, as the Prime Minister said, this destabilising government has a real economic cost for our country and for families. So what is that economic cost? What is going to happen for our personal finances? We'll find out from Paul Johnson up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:22 is the time. To let you know, the Prime Minister, after shutting down any debate at the Cabinet meeting this morning, from Cabinet Ministers saying he was not resigning. There's been some revelations that apparently he said he would meet with people one-on-one if they wanted to talk to him. When they requested those meetings, he refused to have those meetings. So running a little bit scared, I think we can safely say. Now, let's talk about the economic fallout, which was actually mentioned by the Prime Minister at that Cabinet meeting when he told his Cabinet Ministers that the past 48 hours have been destabilising for government, and that has a real economic cost for our country and for families. Certainly we're seeing the costs of our borrowing have gone up. But let's talk about how it impacts you and me with Paul Johnson, former Director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who joins us now. Good afternoon to you, Paul.
Afternoon.
Thank you very much. Well, what a morning. And a lot of us thinking they would have gone slightly differently so far. We are still in a destabilised government, though. There's no doubt at all things are not all settled. What impact does this have? Big picture, and how it impacts our pound in our pocket.
Well, uncertainty, political uncertainty is bad for the economy. It's bad in all sorts of ways. And we've seen that over the last few years. We saw it around the Tory shenanigans and the Liz Truss mini nonsense and all of that kind of thing. The big immediate impact we've seen is an increase in our borrowing costs. Our borrowing costs are already higher than those for pretty much any other country, reflecting all sorts of issues in the UK, higher inflation over a long period of time, political uncertainty and lack of growth. Today, I mean, literally over the last 24 hours, but actually over the last 4 or 5 days, we've seen borrowing costs rise. And I think that's rising because markets are worried about, well, what would happen if we didn't have Keir Starmer? Would we have someone who was less concerned about our fiscal situation than Rachel Reeves, and potentially someone who put in place policies which are even less growth friendly than those that this government has. So what's the consequence of higher borrowing costs? Well, for the government, it just makes everything harder because they're spending more on debt interest, and they're already spending just colossal amounts, well over £100 billion a year, because we've got so much debt. That is what this government inherited.
Okay, let's clarify. £100 billion a year is interest on
just
the debt.
That's just
we're not paying off the debt. It's like we've got an interest-only mortgage. We're not actually paying off the actual sum we borrowed.
Just the interest. And I mean, that on that front, the government, are right to say they've had a pretty shocking inheritance. That is largely not their fault. That is the pile of debt they inherited, and interest rates are probably a little bit higher because of some of the things this government's done. But that's not broadly their fault. But the higher interest rates that are resulting from this instability is just adding to that cost. It's adding to it's adding probably a billion or two. But actually, the difference between what we pay in interest rates and what, say, France pays in interest rates, that's costing us 10 billion plus in addition. Interest paid.
And we pay. This is the thing. When we talk about this debt, I mean, it's not like this. You go to the bank. This is the government. They sell these bonds, sort of. Was it 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year bonds, and they're on the market. Basically, would someone like to, lend us money and we can then spend it instead of having to raise taxes more. And we a lot of our borrowing now is borrowing to pay the interest on the other debts. We're kind of in a payday loan scenario, aren't we?
That's what's worth stopping you there. That you're absolutely right. I mean, we are in this terrible position where we have to, as you say, borrow just to pay back the interest on the debt. And we're having to raise more in tax than we're spending, which is really not something that we've done for a very long time. And of course, that doesn't make people very happy because the government's taking more from them than they're giving back.
Right. So, okay. And yes, a lot of people feel like, well, taxes are at a very, very, very long period at a high. But when the government sells these bonds on the international bond markets, when we are charged more and a lot more than other countries, and it goes up amid speculation, you can see all the graphs today with suddenly a big spike. Is that a load of spivs in their red braces going, yeah, bunch of lefties want to get in charge of the government, we know how to show them, we're going to make some money out of them and buy a new Lamborghini? Is that what's going on, or are there genuine concerns about the future of our economy if different policies are followed?
No, I mean it's genuine stuff. I mean, you know, the people in these markets are judging risk, and they're judging what they need to be paid to lend to us in order to make it worth that chance. Now, it's not just because they think that you know, the UK is likely to totally default on these debts. I think that remains reasonably unlikely. But I think they are worried that we end up with more borrowing, so you know they have to buy more of this stuff, higher inflation if you have a government which isn't worried about the deficit or which is not pursuing sensible policies. And of course, if inflation's higher, then you need a higher return on what you're lending to people. So this isn't a sort of, you know, people sort of just wanting to have a go at a
It's
government.
not a game. It is real life.
It's not because they're left wing. I mean, they took terrible fright at Liz Truss, and no one is going to accuse her of.
No, indeed. But essentially, when you get the Andy Burnhams, who has said he's tried to calm things down on this since, but when Andy Burnham has said it a little while ago, you know, we shouldn't be in hock the bond markets. Well, you don't really have a choice when we've got, is it 2 billion trillion? No, it's not 2 billion. We've got £2 trillion in debt. Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's a heck of a lot of money. I mean, some of that's from, you know, the economic crash, and then of course you know, those that period, and then of course the lockdown. Who knew printing money and making everyone stay at home for years and for not doing anything would have actually had that economic impact. Ukraine war, bailouts, you know, energy bills, and now where we are with the Iran conflict. So there's a lot of different things that have all come together. In terms of, well, we hear a lot about these fiscal rules that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has, and this fear that, I mean, I find this concept difficult, but that there could be someone worse than Rachel Reeves as the Chancellor. But I'm willing to accept that Ed Miliband would be worse. But this idea that you relax the fiscal rules, what are those fiscal rules and what would that mean?
Well, I mean, the fiscal rules at the moment essentially say that debt should be falling in the year 2029-30. That's a very specific rule, and that we should be borrowing only to invest in that year. Now, they're not terribly tight fiscal rules. That would still allow debt to be very high. And it still allows debt to be increasing over the next couple of years. And it doesn't say anything about what happens after that particular year. And because they're forward-looking, you can, I'm afraid, game them. So we should start by saying the current rules we have are not terribly tight. A lot of people talk about these terribly, terribly tight rules. They're really not. If you loosen them, then obviously that means you're intending to borrow more than the current government is intending to borrow, which means you need to go begging to the markets for more, for them to buy more of that debt. And they might well want more return if they've got to buy more of this stuff. It's simple supply and demand. If you increase the if you increase the supply, if the demand is, if you want the demand to rise, you need to give people more money to take it off your hands.
If you were in charge, you don't do the party political stuff. You've always stayed completely neutral. You just judge it on the facts. If you were in charge, what could any leader, any government of any political hue, or someone who takes over from Keir Starmer, or Keir Starmer right now, what could they do that would turn things around for the British economy?
Well, I think there are, I mean, there are actually genuinely a lot of things. And I think one of the really disappointing things about this government and the last one is that they haven't used the majorities that they've had to make those sorts of changes. So we know that there's a pile of regulations that need simplifying. We know that the tax system needs improving and simplifying. We know we need to get more houses built, need this planning system sorted out. We know we need to invest in our infrastructure. Now, these don't happen in large part because they're politically difficult, not because they're economically difficult. And as I say, I think, given that we're 2 years into a government with a huge majority, it's genuinely disappointing that they haven't used that opportunity to do it, as frankly it was with the last government, also with a big majority. I think they're all looking at the sort of day-to-day, and you can see why when prime ministers fall every 5 minutes, but they looked at the day-to-day popularity of individual policies rather than putting in place a programme which makes a difference over a parliament or two.
But that's the issue, isn't it? I know you've got to go, so this will be the last point, but this is the issue we've got. We're up against countries, like China and like Russia, who can plan on a much longer period because they're not having to worry about these things. But we've also just got a country that is, the taxpayers, we won't allow any politician to be honest with us about the fact that we are living way beyond our means and have done for quite a long time, and that at some point, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to tighten our belts. And people don't want to hear it.
I think that is a genuinely big problem. I mean, that's why all the parties were so disingenuous in their manifestos 2 years ago, all claiming they didn't need to raise taxes or cut spending, knowing that they would. Nobody's willing to say that you need to pay more in order to invest in the future. Nobody's willing to say that maybe we need to be a bit less generous with the welfare state. Nobody's willing to say that that maybe pensioners shouldn't be getting the triple lock. I mean, all of the parties seem to be agreed on these things, and they all seem to want to, and again, it is to some extent our fault for saying that these are the things that we insist on having. And you immediately get these backlashes when policies are changed. Now, I think the mistake that politicians make is to try and do them sort of almost half-heartedly or one by one, rather than say, look, here's the narrative, here's the issue, here's the big set of things that we're going to do. We know this is going to make us unpopular in the short run, but we're trying to do the right thing. And actually, when you look at times in the past in this country, I mean, you look back to the 19th, whatever you thought of Mrs. Thatcher, I mean, she drove an agenda through. You look at what happened in places like New Zealand and Sweden and Germany. They've done big reforms, Canada as well. They prepare the reforms, they prepare a narrative, they explain why they're doing it.
The big picture.
Big changes, not small things. Now, your listeners may well disagree with me. I actually thought, what Rachel Reeves was trying to do on the winter fuel allowance, what she's done on farming taxation, what she tried to do on disability benefits, I thought were perfectly sensible, but quite small.
There'll be people booing you right now.
Really irritated a whole load of people because that wasn't done as part of a bigger package and a narrative about why she was doing it.
Okay, absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I think you lost the room on the last one, but
I'm sure I did.
Paul Johnson, always so good to talk to you. Thank you so much, former director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Jake Wallace-Simons listening to that. I mean, look, this is the thing. I've been saying this for years. I will keep saying it. We get the politicians we deserve. If we insist that they lie to us and tell us we can keep having more, not pay more. And again, those people over there, those rich people over there, we never met any of them, but there's these very, very rich people who've all got super yachts and they're not paying any tax. You know what they're going to do? They're going to sail away on their super yachts. They're not going to pay any tax at all. But I mean, we keep insisting that politicians tell us that's what we can get away with, and so that's what they tell us. And then we go, oh, you've lied to us.
Yeah, I mean, not since Margaret Thatcher have we had a politician or a leader who's willing to tell the country what it needs, not just what it wants, and give it what it needs, and then reap the longer-term results, beneficial results of so doing. That's what we need right now, a leader and a government with simply a bit of backbone to tell us the hard messages. We can't keep living beyond our means. And instead, we've got a Prime Minister, for the time being, who's brought Gordon Brown back in as his chief finance envoy.
No, we all agreed that was the solution.
And Gordon Brown was the man who sold off half of our gold reserves between 1999 and 2002, who basically bankrupted the country by overspending, saw us
put everyone on the payroll, everyone on a tax credit.
And began to lose the red wall, of course, telling Gillian Duffy she was a bigoted woman in Rochdale
for making
on the eve of the 2010
asking the most
election.
Reasonable question in the world. Exactly. There we are. But, I've got a load of calls on the board, and some of them seem to say that Keir Starmer's doing a good job. I mean, I maybe that's not their full message. I can't wait to get to those calls. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will hear from you. Thank you so much for keeping those calls coming in. Now the phone lines are back up and running. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. At 12:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and those phones are working. 0244 499 1000 for you to get in touch. Kevin wants to have his say. He's in Wiltshire. Kevin, what do you make of where we are with Keir Starmer right now? What's going to happen to him, and what's going to happen with the rest of the cabinet?
Good afternoon, Julia. Yeah, well, I left to go to work this morning at 6:30 in a state of excitement with Jeremy getting all excited, thinking this is the day that he's done. And it slowly dawned on me. I mean, the moment, no disrespect to you, my love, but the highlight this morning was Carl Turner's reaction to that, one of the resignations of an MP, and he said he didn't have a clue who even she was. And he's part of their party.
I mean, let's be honest. I'm going down the list, and I'm like, I don't even know how to pronounce. I don't know if you're a man or a woman.
No, well, him being in the party, albeit recently, and not even known as he is. I mean, it's dawned on me that Starmer has actually played a blinder. He's surrounded himself with such inept, unknown, useless people that not a single one of them is capable of mounting a challenge to him. And I think he's played a blinder.
That is a very fair point. And it is interesting. They've gone into this cabinet meeting. Some of them apparently talked to him privately last night, and the Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, and others saying, you're going to have to set that timetable. He arrives this morning all gung-ho, slaps his willy on the table, metaphorically. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe in real life, I don't know. Maybe. And basically says that, you haven't passed the test. You haven't got 81 people who are supporting me. So basically, all intents and purposes, put up or shut up, and no, we're not discussing it anymore. And they all went along with it.
Well, absolutely none of them's got any real-world experience of business or working alongside, and none of them know how to even approach arguing with their boss. That's as simple as that.
Well, apparently he did say he would talk to them one-on-one afterwards. We found out in the last half hour when they asked for one-on-one meetings, he refused them. So that's showing he's a little bit running scared, isn't he?
Well, he's just a narcissist at the end of the day. It's his way or the highway, and he's just going to dig his heels in. And there's nobody out there. But Burnham's not going to get in. He's not going to be an MP for another 18 months because whatever by-election he sits in, he's not going to get voted in.
You think there isn't a safe Labour seat?
No. I mean, he could sit in 10 Downing Street, and that's not safe. But he's got no chance of getting in. Burnham, I mean, Rayner, she's as crooked as a dog's own leg. She ain't getting in.
For legal reasons, I have to say that is not the case. But carry on.
Oh, good. Yeah, I know. But there's not a credible alternative, and he's certainly not credible himself.
So what happens? He just limps on?
Oh, yeah, limps on. He will drag it right to the last day of the third year, 3 years from now. He will not give the electorate the opportunity to get rid of him. He wants to be part of this big globalist thing and European thing, and he wants to be a world leader of. He couldn't lead it. Yeah. It's terrible, really.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think you're right, narcissist, but I think you kind of have to be. To want to think, you know what, who's the best person to run this country? Why, I think it's me. I mean, there's an element of narcissism in there, isn't there? Kevin, great call. Thank you very much. Again, we get better political analysis from our callers than we get from a lot of MPs. Michael is in Birmingham. Michael, what do you want to say?
Yeah, hi. Julia. I just want to pivot a little bit. I was going to talk about Starmer. And look, Starmer, I don't think is unsuccessful, by the way. I think he's successful to the people who support him. If you think what he really wants, he wants diversity and DEI and all of that stuff. He wants open borders. He wants us back in the EU. He wants, to get Brexiteers thrown in prison and whatever. And to that side, he's doing a very, very good job. But I want to pick up on some of your experts. I can't remember their names, but there was a guy you had earlier on who said that he thinks that anti-Semitism is across politics. No, it's in Labour and Greens.
Paul, yeah.
And also, I think they're in too much in the Westminster bubble. Yeah. He says, Labour doesn't lose votes to reform. Yes, it does. Go up north, which you can tell by my accent, and that's my roots, right? And I will tell you now that it's a Labour reform voting decision. And the reason why people will go from Labour to reform is immigration. Yeah. And frankly, that they cannot see it. Even now, Starmer, since his hammering last week, has doubled down, says we've got to fight, we're going to fight the right, we're going to stick to diversity. If the Labour Party, right, were the Labour Party now and got that bit of reform and went with that, they would get 500 seats at the next election. Northerners would vote for them. But they're just so tied up in this dogma that they can't see it.
Anyone who's supposed to mass uncontrolled immigration, either legal or illegal, is somehow a racist, xenophobic bigot. I mean, 10 minutes ago, genuinely, and something like 20 years ago, that wasn't even up for debate. Of course you wouldn't allow that.
No, it wasn't. And I think, I go down the old football manager analogy. I've got problems with, like, Arsenal, Liverpool. They're not my team. If they get a bad manager, I want him in there for as long as I can. Yeah. And Starmer, to me, is a 100-seat majority to reform. Keep him there.
Very, very interesting. Maybe that's why Robert Jenrick didn't turn up, the Home Affairs spokesman for the Conservative Reform Party. Maybe that's why he decided to pull out of an interview today. Let me get some of your messages. We'll get another call on as well. Should Keir Starmer resign? I was asking you earlier, what do you think? Oh, sorry, who do you think will replace him? Carol suggests Larry the Cat could do a better job than Labour. Steve says, why hasn't he already resigned? He's lost all authority in government. Anne says he will resign. She says she thinks Andy Burnham will be next. Jackie says a general election is needed. There's no one in the Labour Party worthy of being the next leader. The uni-party candidates are all low-level duds. It is actually extraordinary, isn't it, Jake Wallace-Simons, how sort of poor quality in terms of track record. I've been listening to some podcasts about, 1970s and, the crisis going, cap in hand to the IMF and all that. But the men and women in the cabinets and shadow cabinets, they're so high caliber. They've been war heroes. They were very successful. They were highly intellectual people with sort of strong philosophies and belief systems. They were just a different calibre from the people we've got now.
Absolutely right. And I think the framework of how you get into politics is enough to deter most sane people. You don't get paid very much relative to the private sector. Yeah. You can't have a second job anymore. And you're under intense scrutiny from morning to night. Your family suffers. You get death threats the whole time.
It's a terrible
Why would you
job.
do it unless you were a raving narcissist? And that's where we're going as a country.
It is. Richard says, I do not understand this obsession with Keir Starmer. In my view, it's the Labour Party that's the problem. It's irrelevant who is leading it. Tom says he isn't the problem. The whole Labour Party is echoing that. They're flushing this country down the toilet. Martin says the person who should replace Starmer as Prime Minister is Nigel Farage. General election now. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Ahmad suggests Shabana Mahmood. Tony says one moron out, another moron in. Nothing will change. And Will says all the replacement options are rubbish. Well, let's go to the final call on this. Grace is in London. Grace, what do you think is going to happen? What would you like to happen?
Well, I've always voted Labour until last week, but I'm personally furious with Starmer for cutting funding to programmes which are really helping the very most disadvantaged people, including a programme to help tackle FGM in our world, for example. So I'm personally angry with him for that, but I think that...
Has the Labour Party been cutting funding for that sort of stuff?
Pardon?
Has the Labour Party been cutting funding for that?
Yes, it was...
I'd like to point out FGM wasn't a thing when I was growing up. I can't imagine why.
Well, it was part of the cuts that they made to overseas aid. But I think that people who have very different politics from me, he needs to listen to those people also. And yesterday, in his speech, when he brought up the Tommy Robinson March to denigrate it, I thought to myself, now personally, I don't like the Tommy Robinson March. I'm concerned about how Tommy Robinson seems to be trying to make Christianity about politics rather than about Christ. But I do think that we need to listen to people who are frustrated. Starmer needs to listen to Tommy Robinson fans and understand where they're coming from, not just slander them in the way that he did.
And certainly the huge numbers of people, the tens and tens of thousands of people who've gone on the last Unite the Kingdom rally, and I think it's next weekend, the next one, just ordinary people who are proud of their country, and they are not signed up to an awful lot of the stuff which Stephen Yaxley Lennon, aka Tommy Robinson, is signed up to.
I think that Stephen Lennon stands for a variety of different things. I think that
let's not get sidetracked into him. The best thing we should do with him, I think, is not talk about him so much. I don't think he should have been. I don't think the political party should have allowed him to be the outrider for some basic patriotic and sensible rules around borders. And if they did their job properly, he'd be a nobody.
I think that Starmer, as leader, should be listening to people across the political spectrum instead of pretending that he is somehow so much more noble and righteous than everyone else, which is how it sounded yesterday when he was talking about it.
Do you think he's going to go?
I think he'll have to, because I think he's got too many detractors now within his own party. I don't think he'll be able to hang on.
Would you vote Labour again if he'd gone, and who'd be the leader that you'd vote for?
I'm not sure. I really appreciated how a little while ago Wes Streeting changed his mind on the gender issue and understood why the trans lobby could be so problematic. And I think that for a politician or anyone to kind of be a bit repentant is a really positive thing that we don't often see. So
I think, though, that is his third or fourth position on that issue. I think it's a pretty clear-cut issue. He could have come to a very clear view on. Grace, lovely to talk to you. Really interesting to get that perspective. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be hearing from former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:50 is the time. Jake Wallace-Simons is still with me, journalist and author. We're going to be joined by Ian Collins in a few moments. Tell us what's happening on his show. I mean, I imagine he's going to be on Resignation Watch, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening that today. To get Jake's thoughts on what my next guest has to say, Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. He's counted them in and counted them out many times over the years. Trevor, do you think we're going to get a resignation from the Prime Minister today, tomorrow, this week?
I don't think we're going to get a resignation from the Prime Minister until he has being forced into the position, and I think that could be very soon. This government is broken, it's beyond repair, and I think that what we saw in the street in Downing Street today was a charade. As all of these cabinet ministers paraded out with smiles on their faces, and pretended that everything was business as normal. I mean, this is on the eve of the King's speech, in which the King will lay out the agenda for the next Parliament under my government, as he will call it. There is no government as such at the moment. It's a shambles, and there will have to be a denouement, and it will be Wes Streeting finally making up his mind that he has to go now or never.
Well, this is the interesting thing. We all expected the Cabinet was going to say something in person to the Prime Minister Cabinet meeting. He shut it down immediately by all accounts. Basically, read a statement basically saying, look, you haven't got the numbers, there's lots of destabilising impacts from this, and I'm carrying on unless or until. He did say he would talk to Cabinet Ministers privately, one-on-one, and then refused to actually see any of those Cabinet minutes one-on-one. By all accounts, Wes Streeting was waiting quite some time to talk to the Prime Minister and never got to have a chance to them. We saw him later while other ministers were, glad-handing with the press outside, that he sort of stomped off rather stony-faced. We know also that the King up north, as he's often called, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, is quite coincidentally, in London today. He was seen arriving at Euston Station. Do you think that we will see some sort of action and that these men will be trying to start the ball rolling, either with a resignation from an MP who's going to, hopefully, he thinks, give up at what he thinks will be a safe seat in Burnham's case, and that Wes Streeting's going to say, I've got my 81 MPs, I'm coming for you?
Well, I think that a number of things arise from that. I think the status quo, if that's what you can call it, will not last to the weekend. I think that Starmer is simply going through the motions of making it clear that he's not walking away because it would look like an act of cowardice, whereas bunkered down as he is now in Downing Street, seeing nobody, especially those who are a threat to him, is blatant cowardice, in my view.
Yeah.
The big problem for Andy Burnham is he's got to find a safe seat. No such thing exists after last week. He is not only going to have to flee Manchester, which is now Reform territory, with Reform very likely, when he does resign as mayor, taking that mayoralty. And then where does he go? So Liverpool, I mean, that is the safe haven for left-wingers and Labour diehards. But even there, I think that people might simply say we are sick of this failed government and we are not going to have anyone, we're not going to pick anyone wearing a Labour Party rosette.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Is there any difference? And quite a few of people getting in touch with us on social media today saying, look, the problem isn't Keir Starmer. Look, you know, they don't like him, they don't trust him, he's not a good communicator. I mean, the speech yesterday, the supposedly big reset speech, I mean, that was just an embarrassment. Our response in the studio was that it yesterday? But they said that he's not the problem. The party's the problem. The policies are the problem. The fact that they don't get it. They think the solution is more welfare, not less welfare. They think the solution is taxing those rich people over there and that will pay for everything. Borrow some more. They just don't get it.
No, you're absolutely right. But this is really still down to management. If Starmer was anything like, remotely like, a leader, he would have led from the front. He has failed to lead at all since he entered Downing Street 21 and a half months ago. And so we're in a position now where when you've got two cabinet ministers saying that he's got to set a timetable, that's the Foreign Secretary and the Home Secretary. These are the big officers of state.
Yeah.
And they're not alone in there. They're simply the ones who have actually spoken out today. And the fact that Starmer is obdurately clinging to office will prize a few more of those over the coming days.
Well, indeed. Can I just interrupt you? Because we did have a minister, I think most of us never heard of, frankly, who resigned, the first government minister, not just a PPS, but actual minister who'd resigned. Just now, in the last couple of moments, it's been announced, Jess Phillips, the Home Office minister, she's safeguarding and violence against women and girls minister, and done a very good job of that, that's for sure, but she has resigned from government. That is quite telling. Does that suggest we're now about to get to the next big sort of avalanche of resignations?
Yes, Jess Phillips might not be a household name, but she's very close to it. She is what you might call the conscience of the Labour Party.
God help us all.
Well, I mean, that's how they see her. She is the sainted woman who failed to act on all
grooming
of these
gangs, yeah.
Grooming gangs. But, you know, I think that the big problem now is what happens in the coming days. I think that Streeting has to go. Burnham cannot go.
When you say has to go, he has to make the leadership bid.
He does, and Burnham is not in a position to be in the contest, and nor is Angela Rayner while she is under this tax cloud. Yeah. So what's going to happen? You've got two big beasts left. You've got Wes Streeting and Ed Miliband. Help us all. The probability is that there'll be others who will throw the hats in the ring, but Ed Miliband is more popular within the party at large and in the Commons and in the trade unions than Wes Streeting, who is a Blairite, and Blairites are now yesterday's men.
I'm pondering whether I need to start calling my removal van very, very, very quickly. And do they drive abroad? That's the question, because I think for a lot of people thinking, if it's Ed Miliband as Chancellor, Ed Miliband as leader of this country, already rejected soundly by the electorate in 2015, very, very clear message the public gave. He's I would say, gone full Monty insane since then in terms of his absolute hysteria about net zero. God help us all is all I can say. Trevor Kavanagh, great to hear from you. Thank you very much. Former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh there. Jake Wallace-Simons, I mean, in terms of, I mean, interesting that Jess Phillips has resigned. She has not covered herself in any glory as a Home Office minister. The battles over the grooming gangs, public inquiry, and they're like, what do you make of that? What does that tell us?
Well, I think it tells us that there is some momentum. People have not completely been cowed by Keir Starmer's defiance. She, of course, has a very narrow majority, almost lost her seat in the last election.
Despite all the kowtowing. Exactly,
but she's still willing to take this move. But I think that what we're seeing really is a big and historical moment. You know, this is the Labour Party's problem. It's not the problem of Keir Starmer, as we've been saying all morning. This is the Labour Party having been rejected resoundingly by the country, struggling on life support. And more than that, it's the problem of the collapse of the two-party system, and indeed the collapse of British politics in the old model. I mean, we've had Theresa May 3 years, Boris Johnson 3 years 2 months, Truss 7 weeks, Sunak 1 year and 9 months, and now Starmer 1 year and 10 months. We're like Italy, average of 2 years in power. Everything that we used to hold on to as being stable in our politics is beginning to collapse, and no one knows what's coming next.
No, indeed. But, you know, did we want any of those people to stay on? No, we didn't. Really good to have you in the studio all day today, all morning. Anyway, Jake Wallace-Simons, journalist and author. Joined by now Ian Collins.
Hello.
Well, who knows? I mean, I was getting really hopeful this morning. I sort of, you know, just skipped into the office thinking, we may well get a resignation or certainly an announcement of departure timetable today. Well, certainly in my show.
A roadmap.
It could still come. There could still be a leadership challenge.
There really could be. I thought the point that Jake just made is brilliant, because I kept thinking about the Italian. We used to comedians used to do comedy routines about Italy, didn't they? About how often they changed their leader.